OBS. I forgot. What are you using now? You're not using OBS.
I am Streamlabs OBS.
Oh, okay. No, it was. Man, it's getting too real now. It's okay. Everyone gets to hear us starting about that, but I am all good to start whenever we're good. Well,
Okay.
here I might as well at least hear what you sound like. That way, I'm not gonna send you out to the dogs. Starting about that, but
Awesome. I'm gonna start on
I
mine
am
as
all good to
well.
start whenever we're good. Well,
Okay.
here I might as
Here
OBS. I
we
forgot.
go.
What are you using?
So I'm
You're
starting
not
with the
using
intro.
OBS.
Just give me 1 second. As soon as I'm live, going all
All right.
in.
And then the stream got to hear double me talking and you talking as well. That made it even more professional. So we are all good whenever you are, my man.
What's up, everyone? David here. Welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network, episode 196. And joining me today, we have Spencer. How are you doing, sir?
David, I'm doing so well, and can I just tell you, it is so weird hearing anybody else intro the show, but I take so much pleasure from it. Also, hello everybody, and welcome to the Demon Appreciation Podcast, episode 7. Don't know why I had to stumble on that one. You had the harder number than me, so that's more embarrassing for me. David, I have to ask, do you know why I actually don't use episodes, and I say links?
Oh boy, no, I don't. No, I don't. Why?
So, in my cringy mind, and this was way back when the podcast started, it was just called the Persona Podcast, because Shin Megami Tensei didn't exist before 2013.
Huh.
Oh, wow, that's really funny to think. This podcast is older than SMT 4 being out. That's really funny. Because I remember we actually had art commissioned for it. We had art commissioned for it that was like crossing over you and Flynn from SMT4. It's so crazy to think though, like yeah, like how much like kind of things have like changed in terms of different people and whatnot. But yeah,
That's
so we're doing a crossover episode, half because you were super nice and invited me on the DAP podcast, and the other half because it is the holiday weekend over here, if you can't tell, with Thanksgiving in the States, and I am dreadfully unprepared. And dude, I don't know about you, but it is very hard for me to want to be social or even work on the channel when I have these giant new gaming machines and 1,000,001 games around.
Oh, dude, yeah, definitely. I just dropped from 2 videos a week to one because I have work, which is like the top season at the moment. So many things to do. And then I've got 2 next-gen systems. I just bought a Switch game, completely stupid, but yeah, way too much stuff to do at the moment, definitely.
Wait, well, I get Hyrule Warriors. What's the other Switch game?
Oh, that's the one.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you said
systems.
I got okay, 2 systems and a Switch game. I thought it was
Yeah.
2 and 2. See, like
Yep.
it was funny. I was worried about picking up Catherine, even though I know I literally don't need it, just because it was on sale in the States. I was like, should I get it? Like, maybe it'll stay there for a while. And literally now, a day after that sale went live, you cannot find a copy anywhere I live, within like 300 miles. So I was like, okay, I'm glad I picked up the dumb Switch version, even though I'm probably never going to play it.
Well, I haven't played mine, and I picked it up full price. Even more problematic.
Well, this is just a couple of enablers, enabling not only each other by talking about video games, but enabling all of you guys listening. So if you're watching either live or pre-recorded, thank you so much for listening to the 2 of us. And yes, we do have a problem.
We do. So, what do you want to talk about first? We have a lot of interesting topics today. Next Gen, Game Awards, Mr. Kelly, and Hyrule Warriors.
I know that I've been just pretty much circle jerking the PS5 for the longest time, but I gotta be honest with you, I really want to know, not even know, because I already know a bit more than probably the listeners. I think you should tell everybody what your experience getting not only the Xbox, but how much of a Herculean effort it was for you to get the PS5. Because I was following you during that journey, and man, you definitely make it look like I had it easy, which I definitely did by comparison.
Well, you see, I have a big story with the PlayStation 5 in particular because I wanted one on when was it? It was September 16, the showcase for the last one that Sony did.
Mm-hmm,
okay, so on that day I pre-ordered one and I got it right away. Everything went super well, but for personal reasons I had to cancel it my pre-order, which was not a good move. But then I wanted one once again, and that's when I got it. I got it last week, but I pre-ordered it at lunch directly. It was a mess. Like at first, I was trying to get it on Toys R Us because here in Canada we still have Toys R Us, and they said they would have pre-orders available at 9 in the morning. It was terrible. Like it crashed so hard. It was not even possible to put it in my cart. It was that bad. So yeah, definitely a terrible experience. Series X, it went well though. I was able to pre-order it on the first night that I tried at lunch. But I ended up getting the PS5 on Best Buy, Canada.
And then I forget. So with Microsoft, would you just pick it up Microsoft directly, or
No, Series X was Walmart. I got it from Walmart.
how
But
is
that's the first place that I tried, and I just got it right away. It went pretty well.
so since we basically live close enough, but I feel like our shipping areas couldn't be any more different. Who's like the go-to dependable, everyone trusts Canadian like delivery option? And then at least for like big websites, who's the like, oh my god, you never want to order from them?
The one that you don't want to order for them when it comes to mailing service is definitely Canada Post here.
Really?
That's like they're at the moment with the pandemic, it's terrible. Like it is that bad. Like, you're gonna receive like I ordered games from a local store. They have priority shipping, which is like first day shipping, and on the same day they ship the item, and you're supposed to receive it the next day. And I received it 6 days after during the pandemic with them. It's that bad. Now, the best carrier would probably be Puro later here.
Hmm.
Is it similar? Well, obviously not Canada Post for you, but you
Well,
have Puro as well, right?
no, I don't think we have that one.
Oh,
At
you don't?
least in the for us, I think what it normally ends up being is your worst option depends on who's actually shipping it company wise, not really service. I think best is any company you can get to go DHL is the way to go, but not all companies go with DHL, and depending on your contract, it's going to be a lot more expensive. But I just think it's really funny because I remember back in like maybe like 10 years ago, it was Amazon. If you had Amazon Prime, you were always getting stuff on time and everything was perfect.
Oh
And
yeah.
then now I actively avoid Amazon at all times and I try and go brick and mortar, even in the pandemic. Like, I would rather mask it up and try and go to Walmart to pick up a game day one than have to pick it up through Amazon because Amazon is my go-to initial pre-order, but then as soon as I have another form of getting the game, I immediately ditch it. Just because Amazon, yeah, getting pre-orders is easy and has no money down really needed. But the problem with Amazon now is like, even if you choose day one shipping, you're not definitely going to get a day one.
Yeah.
The way they ship things, like, I don't know if you've ever had this too much, but like they'll pretty much anything they can throw in a bubble mailer, they'll throw in a bubble
Oh
mailer,
man.
and that even includes collector's editions. So like it's very
Hmm.
rare to get not only games but even like books messed up. Like I remember I got shipped I have this like 500 plus page Sekiro game guide. It's this really really nice book, and it just shipped in a bubble mailer and just had all the corners destroyed in it.
Oh yeah, that sucks so bad. It's funny that you're talking about this because yeah, Amazon here, the delays, even with the pandemic, they're great. They still deliver pretty quickly with Prime, but I do 100% agree with the bubble wrap thing. Like the latest thing that I had, like I purchased Persona 5 Dancing, the regular edition, standard edition. The box was just completely cracked. It just exploded in shipping. And then the worst thing that hurt the most was I pre-ordered the Yakuza Remastered Collection, the big box thing, and it's
Well, to
all
be fair, that one is literally. I feel like if I looked at that box too hard, it would fall apart. That thing is like the
yeah,
definition of like flimsy
agreed.
cardboard.
Yeah, for sure, but it still sucks because it's a beautiful box and it's like all dented now. I just opened it and it was already broken down. So yeah, no, for the quality of the shipping, it's not nothing impressive.
Now here was another one I was kind of talking about with a friend of the show, Jax Bagamaka, because we were talking about porch pirates. Now, where I live, I don't really have that as that big of a deal in terms of people stealing packages where I live, even in my apartment. But I've had it happen so many times. Like Amazon packages just miraculously getting like lost, and like I don't know how common like that is over there. Like let alone like losing stuff, but like really like porch pirates for like where basically Amazon or whoever drops off a box and then someone picks it up before you even know it's there at the door.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I never happened something like that. Never happened to me.
It is like
Fortunately.
so soul crushing, and like I even feel it like through friends. Like I remember just like over this last weekend, one of my listeners, Mirth, is totally skipped the PS4 generation, which is just insane to me to imagine. But they
Damn.
were they had their PS5 pre-ordered, and it was supposed to get delivered last Sunday. And as soon as it was shipping out on Sunday, it was lost. Like, oh, couldn't find your address. It's just lost for like it was like 24 plus hours.
Wow.
No idea where it is. Yeah, you're gonna get your money back even if it was lost. But like just that thing of just like having to stress about that for like hours on end is just like so stressful and whatnot. Of just like I've had that like the most I've really had that with it. I remember that happened with my Persona 5 and 3 Dancing Collector's Edition. But even
Mhm.
that, like, I got a copy sent back to me in like 2 days. It wasn't that big of a deal. But, like, for something as big, like a $500 system that is
Mhm.
impossible to get right now. And, like,
Oh
I don't
man.
know if you saw the article that came out, but, like, Sony straight up just admitted recently in an interview, they're like, oh, yeah, we're all sold out, by the way. Like, there's nothing that Sony has in stock.
Yeah. And that must have sucked so bad. I mean, you're expecting your console, you can't wait to get it, and they just tell you like, "Oh, we lost it. Too bad." Oh man.
Yeah,
But did he get it in the end?
Yeah. So they ended up getting it in the mail the next day, thankfully, and it was one of those moments of like, man, I just want to see a picture of you and your PS5 so bad. Like, I had felt like I was so personally attached to the story because like, especially like a PS5 for me is exciting, but like I still have stuff like to play with it. But like in Mirth's case, while like I felt so personally attached to it, it was just like that is going to be so amazing playing that PS5 for the first time because just think about it. Like it's not like with us where oh cool, we have backwards compatibility and we can check out games
Yeah.
that way. It was like they had never played P5. So they just get to experience Royal
Damn.
on like on the PS5 along with everything else that's new or in the PS Plus collection and I'm like, "Oh, no, that's like perfect." Like if you
Of
have like
course.
if somehow you had the strength of the willpower to skip a whole generation and now are going into these new ones, it's like what a time to be alive because like the backlog is enormous.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I had a PS4 and I'm enjoying PS4 games at the moment on my PS5. That's a thing that I wanted to tell you. I bought a Series X, I bought a PS5, and the only game that I bought on the same week that I received it is a Switch game.
Well, hey
I
man,
don't
that's what
have Spider-Man. I want it. I don't have Spider-Man yet, and
you
I
have one of the best PS5 launch games though with Astro, and you already platinumed it.
oh yeah, that was great. That's one game that I wanted to talk about. It was great. It was really good. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, Astro is like one that I keep just simping for. Of like, don't sleep on Astro. No matter what game you have, make sure that is the first thing you play, and whatever you can do, do not spoil it. Don't watch people play it. Don't look up Easter eggs. And it's
Because
just
the
so
Easter
fun.
eggs are great.
Oh yeah, it's just like all of them made me laugh so much, and like I don't know if you got all of them, but like the fact that it
Probably.
has Easter eggs from big stuff like Final Fantasy or Devil May Cry is like okay, that's cool, it's expected. Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, I'm like okay, it's a little more surprising, but then they even had stuff like from really obscure PlayStation 4 games that like no one knows about. Like there was one for Birthday the Beginning and when I like saw that next to me, I'm like, dude, nobody's going to get this. It was the
Yeah.
one when you're in GPU jungle and there's like the little dinosaur with the wisp next to it. I'm like, dude, nobody's going to get this because like that was like an NIS published game that like nobody played. It was like such a weird little thing for them to include, but like just you could tell like those devs not only really are good at what they do with like platformers, but like their love and nostalgia for PlayStation is better than what probably Sony has.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. That's so unexpected. Like there was some cool ones like you mentioned that you're like, "Oh yeah, that's to be expected. That's cool." But then there was older games as well. Like there was the obscure games like you mentioned that personally I didn't notice them. But older games like Ape Escape or another one that I really liked was they added Heavy Rain.
Oh my
And there's a
god.
trophy for this one where you have to like go under the what was it? There's some type of roof
Yeah, there's like
to
a
avoid the rain.
little
That was
covering.
cool.
One of my favorite that's not old but is really obscure is did you find the one for Until Dawn?
No, I haven't, but I played the game though.
Yeah, so it's really obscure and I'm only going to like spoil this one just because it's like in the first level of the game and unless you know what it is,
Hmm.
you're not really that spoiled. It's and when you're in Cooling Springs in the freezing part with all the ice, on a little island by themselves, it's all 8 of the protagonists, and you wouldn't really know it's Until Dawn related until you notice, oh, it's 8 teenagers. One of them has like a beanie, one of them has like a jacket, and it's like,
Wow.
oh yeah, because like Until Dawn is like a cast of 8 teenagers in the cold area for a horror movie. I'm like, wow, that's really really smart. Of like, which is funny because like Until Dawn is a really popular, really really great game, but none of those characters, like no one's like, oh yeah, Rami Malek's character. Let me tell you his name. Like people don't really remember the characters as much as the experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. Did you notice it yourself or?
Oh no, yeah, immediately everyone, like my favorite part about playing Astro was I played through the entire thing with my wife, and she knows a bit about PlayStation history, but definitely not like
Okay.
as much as me. So the fun part was either playing it with her or trading it off and explaining all of them to her. So like my favorite was when you would get the artifacts, and like when you would be getting stuff that she would just look at me and go like, what is this like weird dildo controller? And I'm like, that's the PlayStation Move controller. like all of those little memories are like the stuff like the PSP Go or the PlayStation portable like camera and microphone.
Yeah.
She's like, are these real? And I'm like, yes, they are. I have owned them all.
Yeah, and how cool is that? Like that place where you see everything in 3D. That's really cool. And it feels like all those the models of the PlayStation collectibles that they use, they're so beautiful, they're so well made that they're like, wow, I don't remember a PS1 looking that good. It's like all of them are yellow now. So when you see it in full HD 4K, it's like, wow, beautiful PS1.
Yeah, and
No, I really liked it.
it was just like the smartest thing that I think not enough people are talking about, of just like how Astro, it's not only it's free, not only is it there at launch, it is pre-installed. As soon as you boot up that
Yep.
system, Astro's just right there. And it's like, I think the more people get away from it being a tech demo, the more people will understand that it's like Astro is just a great game. Like it is just a great game that everyone should experience, and hopefully going in knowing as little as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Oh no, that was really cool. And the reason why I played it, the game that I'm playing right now on my PS5 is Horizon Zero Dawn because I skipped it on PS4. Please don't blame me.
It's okay.
Um,
It's okay. That just means you enjoyed 13 Sentinels more.
yeah, and I'm playing it at the moment. It's amazing, but I was thinking of jumping right into this one as soon as I got the console. But then I heard a lot of people saying that Astro was really good, and the biggest reason why I decided to jump into Astro first was because people were saying the DualSense. It shows everything about the DualSense, this game, and I want to hear your thoughts on the matter because it really impressed me. This controller and the way that this game utilized it, it was really impressive.
Yeah, like I talk about this a little bit in Gnarly's upcoming podcast, just because God forbid you find anyone else besides me on the internet to talk about PS5. But the DualSense is seriously like my favorite controller right now. It is ruined me for older games in the sense of it feels the best to play. Its responsiveness, it's just like it feels great. It like feels like a quality controller. And then without even getting into it, but like when you add that experience of using the microphone, using the speaker, using the haptic feedbacks, and especially those triggers, like when you have a game that actually like uses the triggers in different and interesting ways, it just like makes me just think of all these things. It was like, oh my god, like I wish that PlayStation 4 games could like be patched in to add that support, but I think that's just
Oh
something like
yeah.
Sony wants to keep into like PS5 ones, of like even just like with shooters, of like say I'm playing like Call of Duty Warzone, or if I'm playing Black Ops. Black Ops is a PS5 game,
Yeah.
and the triggers are very very specific to each gun, and they feel different, and it like feels really really
Wow.
quality, but it's not added into Warzone yet because there's not a native version of it. So then when you're just going into it, it's like, yeah, it still works, and there's like you're sort of cutting out the middleman for it, but it just really adds to that like immersion. And one of the biggest things that like thinking about it for future stuff that gets me really excited is an easy one is like rhythm games, because I think if you start getting rhythm games that like start using those buttons and the haptics, like so you're really feeling the beat, is like, I don't know if you ever played Rez. Like have you ever played like Rez at all?
What is that?
Rez is made by the guy who did Tetris Effect. It's originally a Dreamcast game, and it was a PS2 game over here. It's
Mm.
basically like an on-rail shooter, but like on acid and very heavy on the game vibrations. It's got a really, really awesome soundtrack and unique style. But its whole big thing was like it's all about being in tune with the music and the vibrations to the point where you actually had an ability on the PS2 version and even the PS4 version where you could hook up 8 controllers to the game, and if you put them on different body parts, you can actually feel it differently. So you'd have like 2 on your arms, 2 on your legs, 1 on your lap, and maybe like 1 you're holding and like 1 on your back. And each controller had a different beat of the music. So it was sort of like you had like a different like suit of vibrations. Like it was so into the like vibrating even back then is the thing. Like no joke, for the Dreamcast and the PS2, it just straight up sold like a vibrator as a controller because like it was just the easiest way to have a thing you can hold in your hand that has different levels of vibrations that are more intense than a DualShock. So like just like looking at stuff like this, I think rhythm games could do a really, really great job with it. But on top of that, the big one I want to see is oh my god, I'm totally blanking on it now that I was talking about the vibrator for it. What was I going to say besides that for it? Oh my gosh. Wow.
Let me say one thing about the vibrations while we're at it, and if it comes back, just interrupt me.
Please do.
The triggers, the adaptive triggers, the one thing that I want to see is I really do love my racing games, and I can't wait to see how they're going to make it work with a racing game. Like for say if you're driving too fast, it could start shaking in a way that feels like when you're kind of losing control. You could feel it in the triggers. It's really hard to explain, but I have my idea of how I think it could work. And that's something that I wanted to bring up because I'm playing Forza on my Series X, and I'm like, wow, this controller is comfortable, but nothing more. Like it's not impressive. There's nothing on it. It's like the Switch. There's HD Rumble, which is all right, and then what Sony did with the DualSense, and we're kind of fanboying here, but I mean, Astro is, wow, honestly, the way that they showed how this controller works is so impressive. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it spoils you for sure in the sense of like even other games like going into Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man, you have a little bit of pressure back with the whipping around with your web swinging, but it's not as like kind of in your face about it. But then there's other subtle ways like people aren't talking about a lot, but like Demon Souls does it really, really well, where like it does vibrations when you do like critical hits or are taking lots of damage so that you really feel it in your hands. So like stuff like that I think is going to be really fun. I'll be curious to see how RPGs handle it. Obviously we don't have oh my gosh, okay, oddly enough I finally remembered what I was going to say. I'm going to remember what I said before. Krillcast actually didn't remind me of what I wanted to say, but because he typed in the words Project Re-Fantasy. The other thing I was really excited about, I cannot wait to play horror, specifically Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil 8 on this thing is going to make me shit my pants. Like 100%, no doubt. Resident Evil 8 with like the DualSense at full max, that thing is going to like lead me to defecating.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even I mean, horror games, I can't wait. I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do with this controller in horror games? I'm sure they're going to find a way to like incorporate it that it's going to freak us out. I mean, RE8 is going to be great. When is it coming out already?
I think the current rumor is first quarter, and I think it'll be smart if Capcom sticks to that like horror in the early first quarter of the year, like with RE2 and 3, and even RE7. I think January's too soon, but honestly, I think like a February or March would be really big for them. But like honestly, they are so in there, like they are so like right now, like especially with like next gen stuff, eating out of the palm of like everyone's just kind of eating out of their hands because like they haven't really stumbled at all in terms of horror for them. So that one just kind of more of a hey, it's gonna happen when it happens. The funny thing is actually talking about Re-Fantasy before. I promise we'll get into Atlas stuff, but the funny thing about Re-Fantasy, Jesus, now I'm getting all messed up with it. The funny thing is about Resident Evil 8 Village is at TGS they were actually very candid. They were like, hey, we're not actually sure if we want this to be next gen exclusive because depending on how much everyone's going to be able to sell everything, we might want to make it multi-platform on PS4 and Xbox One. And I'm like, I get that, but especially now after getting my hands on the system, I'm like, oh my god, I can't imagine playing a toned down version. Like obviously it would be very easy for them to make it work and like kind of scale down the visuals, which might happen, but just like stuff like that gets me really excited. And I haven't played it yet, even though I know it's out. I'm waiting for the physical copy. But even just like with action games that Capcom does, like I can't wait to get my hands on the physical version of DMC5. Like using the DualSense with like rumble speaker and even just like little stuff of like, oh, using like the triggers to rev Nero's sword, but there's actually resistance there is just going to be such like a like new experience to it. And like, yeah, is it gimmicky? Sure, but like all video games are gimmicky to a certain extent.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. DMC, it's funny you're bringing this one up. It's one that I want to buy. I thought it was launching with the console, but just as you mentioned, I realized that it is launching with the console, but not physically. So I'm waiting for the physical edition. That's another game that I skipped on the PS4, but that I will buy the special edition.
That will be so amazing to be able to play that as like your first experience of that. By the way, just to show how crazy this is, dude, that's out in a week. Next Tuesday is when that's out.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's out December 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And knowing me, I'm probably stupid, and it was actually December 10th. But hopefully, I'm just getting that confused with. Cyberpunk.
For us, there's still just the placeholder. It says it's December 31st.
Yep, 12/1/2020. But yes, that is the go-to, and I'm looking at Europe as well. So Europe and America physical is coming out next week on the 7th. Sorry,
on the 7th?
7 days from now, it is the 1st of December.
On the 1st. Okay,
yes.
Cool. All right. Chris, in your chat, Chris Krillcast, I just want to tell you, no, you're not wrong. I was asking what's a Project Re Fantasy because we haven't heard anything from this darn game. And we were supposed to hear something from this game in 2021. So you're perfectly right. That's the name. I was just kidding.
Oh, man. Timmy Tom asked an interesting question. Now, you are a Yakuza fan. You have a
Correct.
You have a PS5 and an Xbox One. I don't think I've actually asked you this. Are you planning on playing Yakuza 7 on Xbox? Because like that's the only best next-gen version.
I do have a story for that as well. When I pre-ordered the Pix and Love edition that I bought, I wasn't planning on getting a Series X. So I pre-ordered the PS4 edition. But since the next-gen version is the Series X version, well, at first, I would like to play it on Xbox, but there's no way that I'm going to double dip since I paid like $100 for this stupid collector's edition that I bought. So I'm going to play it on PS4, unfortunately, even if I have the Xbox.
So as someone who's played both, I at least just want to let you know, it's really, really funny. Like, it does look a little bit sharper. It does look a little bit better than the PS4 version running on a PS5. But what's funny about it is the biggest difference is it just destroys any loading. But Yakuza 7 already has amazing load times. And what's so funny about that is there's tip screens, and the tip screens are literally there for so short you cannot even read them. It's like, wait, why are you even here then? Because like they
even on PS5.
PS5 you can definitely read them. They're still pretty short, but Xbox it's literally like once gone and there you go, you're in the game. It's like, why is this here? Like, what if I needed to read this?
Yeah, but you see, I wish I pre-ordered the Xbox version, but it's not a big deal because I mean this type of game I don't necessarily need the top tier performance personally.
No, yeah. It's like, and from what I can tell, it's definitely like the biggest thing you're going to miss is if you like say want to play it at like, see, because it's weird because there's 3 different versions to play it on Xbox One, whereas PS5, it just plays regular. So on Xbox Series X, you can actually play 4K 60, 4K 30, which is going to look like even sharper. So like a dynamic 4K on 60, a locked 4K at 30, and then there's like a high frame rate mode. It never gets to like 120, but it definitely kind of pushes dynamic 4K higher than the dynamic 4K 60 does. So the third one's kind of like okay, I guess they just wanted to throw it in there and really see what was interesting. But yeah, I just find it so interesting of the fact of like, well, like they really did like put a lot of extra thought and care into the Xbox version, like way more than I thought. Because like even PS4 Pro didn't get this many features when it came out in Japan originally as an exclusive.
Oh yeah, no, this is just not the type of game that I'm looking forward to performance, like for example DMC is. And man, that bad boy is like 120 FPS, right?
Honestly, there's a couple of other games I'm surprised have not been talked about as getting to 120. Call of Duty runs in 120 this year. There's a couple other ones, but yeah, DMC was the only one I really heard a lot of people talk about. But yeah, Call of Duty does it, and there are other games that I'm just totally kind of blanking on. But even with that, yeah, it's just been so funny. Of like, I bought a new TV when I moved into my place, and it's been so fun of like playing my PS4 games. I was never like, whoa, check it out, my new TV's really getting like pushed to the limits. But now that I have like my PS5, and I'm sure you're sort of feeling this now with both the Xbox and the PS5, it's like, well, okay, now I see why I upgraded. Like, this is why I upgraded my TV, because like it does have a noticeable difference.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a standard 1080p TV before, no HDR, and I think it was a 2012 TV that I had, and I just replaced it because everyone was telling me like, you're stupid if you don't have the 4K HDR at this point with two new systems. I think it's actually your podcast that you had with for the PS5 initially, where you were the only one. Was it with Ozzy? I think it was with Ozzy and
oh, that was like the
Gnarly?
big one. Yeah, the big one with Ozzy, Gnarly,
Yeah, that was a funny one.
Michelle, and Greg. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one I liked it, but that was the one that everyone was like, oh, if you don't have a 4K TV and you're buying next gen, it's useless. And I was like, oh man, I think I have to buy one now.
Yeah, it is funny because like there are obviously things like you're still gonna enjoy the controller even if like you're playing on like a 720 display for it. But yeah, the visual stuff definitely does help a lot, and it's been really fun also getting to explain stuff to my wife of like she now knows what RTX is. Like I never would have thought in a million years like my wife, who doesn't play games at all outside of like fighting games or warrior games, would be like, oh hey, yeah, let me explain to you what ray tracing is. So it's just funny to like think like how it's led to these sort of conversations, and even just like little other things of like now going back into backwards compatibility mode with a bunch of other stuff, and either being really underwhelmed, whether it be stuff like Persona 5 or like I know it's so much of a joke, but like I literally, my jaw was on the ground when I was playing Scramble. I was like, this looks like I just like imported like the next gen version of Scramble, and all I did was like poking it because like it killed all the loading, made the game look way better, and it made it run at like a even more steady 60 than it originally did. Because what was so funny was like before I had played it on PS5, I booted it back up because it had been so many months since its release, and I was like, okay, I want to check it out because I played the Age of Calamity demo, which we're going to talk about later. And Age of Calamity, it's actually got pretty good load times, but when it does make you load, the loads are a little bit long, but there's not a lot of inner level loading. But with Scramble is a lot of inner level loading. There's a big load to start, and then there's a lot of little loads as you're going into new areas. And even on PS4 Pro, those loads were like anywhere from like 10 to 15 seconds, whereas now they're like single second waits on PS5.
Okay. There's one thing that I want to add on this, but before I forget, there's one question in my chat that has to be asked to you directly because I didn't play the Devil May Cry 5, but King Narukami asks me, is DMC5 a good place to start with this series?
Oh, man, that's really hard. Okay, so like...
I have no clue. I only played the first game, so...
So, if you just want a great action game, yeah, go in, why not? But at the same point, no matter what you're playing on, because the HD Collection and DMC4, and even the reboot DMC, those are all backwards compatibility on PS4 or Xbox. Like, I would say it is worth trying the originals at least, and even if you don't want to buy it, like, maybe just check them out. Because, yes, you're going to enjoy, like, 5 is the best game of the series, hands down. But the story, even though it is hammy and really goofy, it has a lot of stuff that relies on, like, callbacks. And so you're going to miss a lot of just, like, little things that'll really kind of add up. Whereas, like, I'm sure you could, like, go in and enjoy the game fine for it. But, like, there are, like, so many aspects of DMC5 are the culmination of the entire series. Like, it references every little thing, like even little things you wouldn't kind of expect to see. But again, if you don't want to have to really put the time into it, it is still an amazing game, an amazing soundtrack. All the characters, for the most part, white-haired guy needs to kill other white-haired guy. That's the game. Like, its story is not that deep. It's just you're going to miss a lot of callbacks. So that's, like, the harder one to recommend.
Okay, fair enough. A good game overall, but you're going to enjoy it way more if you play the other games, basically.
Also, going back to Narukami, he does ask, is 120 that much more noticeable to 60? So 60 to 30 is really noticeable. And depending on the title, it might kind of be like, is it really worth it? Because I know I went back and forth with Spider-Man a lot. 60 to 120 is nice, but it's not a deal breaker. It's like it's a cool improvement, but it's not going to like make or break the experience. And I'd say that one's way more, your mileage may vary. And like he says, he only has a TV that does 60 hertz. You're not missing out. Like no one's going to be playing the 120 version and be like, oh my god, this is the best way to play it. Like I'd say the only people who are really ride or die 120 plus frames is usually like multiplayer first person shooter games. Mm-hmm. And even that, like I've played so many compromised first person shooters, like a FPS in 120 doesn't really do for much as me as like say a character action game. That's why like I kind of wish stuff like Spider-Man had like crazy frame rates, or even like Persona 5 Scramble. Like I genuinely believe if Scramble comes to next gen, like as an official next gen port, that it's going to have a 4K and 120 mode, because Koei Tecmo's already announced. I don't know if you saw, they announced that they are bringing Neo 1 and 2 to PS5 as native versions. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh my god, just imagine if Scramble had a 120 mode. Like, that would be perfect. Just, like, increase the number of enemies on screen by, like, 2 or 3. Make the, like, everything just crazy fast. Make, like, no loading screens. Like, there's so many little things they could do to that game that would just be amazing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But Atlas not going to go back. They won't.
See, I think that Scramble has a good chance of getting a next-gen port. Just because...
You think so?
Just because it's been so long, and the amount of work needed to make a next-gen port would be very, very little in comparison, even if they don't want to add in any new... content, if they just make it technical enhancements...
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, exactly, because like, you haven't even played it running at 30 on Switch, like sub-30 on Switch. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's just one of those cases of, like, it can only help, really.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Announcement at the Game Awards... I don't know about that.
My favorite is like they'll be like, you're only getting Scramble announced if we win best RPG of the year.
Probably not happening.
So
do we want to jump into Game Awards?
I want to jump into Game Awards. I want to talk about the Hyrule Warriors. I gotta ask you though, because I know you haven't really bought anything. Just regale me and all the listeners. What is it like owning the Xbox fridge? I need to know your experience with the your experience with the X. Mainly just because I'm not like jealous, like, oh man, like I really, really want, like I actually do really want the system, but like I'm just dying to know, like, what have you been playing? Because I'm assuming you have Game Pass.
Nope.
You don't have... What are you playing on it then?
I'm only playing... The only game that I played on it for now, I'm planning on playing other games, but the only game that I'm playing at the moment is Forza. Forza Horizon 4.
Okay, at least it was like not the like boring sleepy time Forza. I cannot believe you don't have Game Pass though. Okay, so... Is there a reason, or are you just like waiting for, like, is it like a money thing? Like I need to... Because like Game Pass is such a stupid good deal. I'm like, how do you not go for it?
Well... I collect physicals, and I don't plan on buying that many games, that many recent games either. So it's the stupid reason.
No, I get it, but my thing would be this: physical would be all my PlayStation games, and then Xbox would literally be my Game Pass machine. Just because like it's guaranteed you're getting all those first party things. Because like even though I'm Mr. Physical, even though I still own a couple of my like Xbox One games from back when I had the system, I'm not going to look at something like Halo Infinite or even Gears Tactics and be like, I need to pay $60 for a box, you know? Mm-hmm. Like those are games that I'm like unless I grow into a nostalgia, I would get it. But like I'm not buying boxed copies of games because I need boxed copies to enjoy them. Like I've downloaded games before, but like when it's something like I don't really have a super big nostalgia for, it's way more of just like let's go for it. That's why oh sorry,
you see there's one thing that I want to add on this before I forget, sorry to interrupt.
You're good.
I'm not going to pay $60 for those games that I want to play. That you mentioned, Gears Tactics is one of the games that I want to play on my Xbox. I'm not paying $60 for this. I know that it's going to be in the bargain bin in a year, so I can wait. On Xbox, there's no game that I absolutely need day one. That's the thing. So I can wait. Does that make sense? I can wait for most of those games. So
it definitely makes sense. I will say
Game
this.
Game Pass is a phenomenal deal. I agree.
I will say this, though, also in the defense of Xbox, it will forever have better backwards compatibility stuff. than PlayStation's ever going to have. Like, just the fact alone that you can play original Xbox games on there, like, that it has the original Panzer Dragoon in Orta, or other stuff like that. Like, it's just so crazy that, like, PlayStation is clearly shown with their actions, like, they have no interest in trying to look back that far. Like, we were lucky to get PS4 on PS5.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's another big selling point. That was a big selling point for me as well for the Xbox. I mean, the biggest thing for me, like, I still have my PS3 hooked up because I play it kind of often actually, but now I can just buy the 360 version of a game that I want to play because I can play it on my Series X and it's gonna run way better now.
Now you have a 360 copy of Catherine, right?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I told you, but I don't have one either.
I need you to do this for me whenever you can. Get a copy of Catherine or buy it digitally, whatever one you want to do, because Catherine is backwards compatible. I would love to see, because I know it runs 4K on Xbox One. So I wonder how much, like, even faster it could run or look on Xbox Series X, because, like, unlike PlayStation's backwards compatibility, unless, like, the developers have it kind of locked, it's just going to be stuck at its native resolution. Whereas with Xbox, everything they bring forward into their compatible stuff, it just, like, because they're doing it on their end, they're not making Atlas do anything. It's just like, okay, it's going to run better, it's going to have auto HDR. Like, just think about it, like, with the Xbox One or Xbox Series X version, that's the only way to play Catherine with HDR. Even though it's, like, not, like, designed HDR, it is interesting that is something that you can only do on those systems.
Oh yeah. Did you know that we're fake fans of Catherine because we don't own the Xbox copy?
I like to think that at the very least, when I tweeted about this, like, yesterday or whatever it was, I hope that I blew some people's minds with the European cover, because for the longest time I knew people who were like, the only reason I own Catherine on 360 is because I wanted K Catherine cover, and it was just one of those funny things of, like, I think it's so funny that Europe is the only country that was like, no, just one version gives you both. Like, that's how it should have been. Like, divvying up girls by system, I thought was so funny, but, like, just so, like, no one was going to buy Xbox 360 versions of Catherine, even if they didn't have a 360 just for K Catherine, which I thought was so funny. Now, that being said, I would have loved it. Like, I would have thought it had been so funny. Imagine if they had the foresight when Full Body came out last year to release 3 versions at the same time, and I assume it would be like this, just because I'm really evil.
I know where you're going.
K Catherine would be PS4, C Catherine would be Vita, and Quatherine or Ren would be Switch, because haha, you get it. And then they could have, like, a different covered version for each one.
Then we would have to buy the 3 of them.
I mean, yeah,
problematic.
It's better than what I'm looking at right now on my shelf if I have those 3 versions and they all have the same boring-ass cover.
Yep.
Like, that's at least why, like, Japan was smart. Like, Japan, for the Switch version, remember, they actually made a version where you could switch out art to have a different girl on the middle. So I at least thought that was kind of cool, how that was, like, their day one bonus as opposed to the keychain.
The keychain's cool, though.
It's a keychain.
Yeah, it's still in the plastic. Yeah, I'm saying that it's cool, but it's still in the plastic. It's not going anywhere. Okay, let's jump Game Awards because we're an hour in and we're still talking about random stuff. But it's cool, man. It's cool. Did you vote for the Game Awards?
I haven't, just because I just don't really, like, I know that voting, like, adds up to a sizable amount of it, but at the same time, I love the Game Awards. I love watching them. I love seeing who gets nominated. I love who gets winning. I don't ever put a lot of, like, myself into it, just to, like, I just can kind of see what it's like on its own. I'd be curious, though, like, so did you vote for everything? Did you vote for a couple of categories? Like, I'm like, I think the discussion around it is actually more interesting for me than actually voting.
For sure. Oh, yeah, agreed. No, I just voted for the ones that I thought were interesting to me, like the categories where I want to see a specific game win. That's when I voted. So I skipped a bunch of them, to be honest. But this show, again, I had talks with people on the Discord before, saying that you don't have to take those awards seriously because, I mean, Jump Force was nominated for best fighting game of the year. So that says a lot about who's voting. I mean, most of them are not even playing the game, so not taking this too seriously. But there's still a bunch of cool nominees this year, including 13 Sentinels in Best Narrative.
I was just about to be really mean and just say the unfortunate truth, because I was telling people this recently. I have bad news. If you think 13 Sentinels was nominated because... if you think 13 Sentinels was nominated because a bunch of game critics looked at it and were like, oh my gosh, this story was so amazing, we better vote for it. I legitimately think that, because most people don't know this, but the Game Awards nominees are all pretty much given to by Western press. It's about like a pool of 80 different people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of them did this. They realized that Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, they realized those games are going to get nominated a lot. And they looked at recently reviewed games that had good stories tied to them or talked about. And They were like, oh god, we have to nominate at least something that's not just like the obvious answer. Like, because I'm not even saying that in the sense of like, I love The Last of Us. Like, Last of Us is like probably like one of my game of the years. But like, what's so funny about that, it's like, I get it. It's like, you don't want to just keep doing, like, the obvious answer. So it was probably literally everyone who voted for its fifth choice. It wasn't everyone's, like, first or second. Because, like, because think about it, no major site was, like, advocating, oh my god, did you guys hear about this? Like all the people talking about, like, all the games of the years and stuff, or even people who were just talking about 13 Sentinels, it was like, oh yeah, it's really good, you should play it, but it wasn't like you were seeing like podcasts dedicated to it by like the big, like IGN wasn't doing a spoiler cast for 13 Sentinels, and God knows they never were going to. But,
oh no, definitely.
So like, it's one of those things of 13 Sentinels is unfortunately the definition of it was an honor to be nominated, and that's about it.
Oh,
like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, I think even people at Atlas were like, really? You sure?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because like, think about it, it didn't even get stuff like best art. And now, like, I'll say this, I think it's cool that it was there. It definitely does have a unique story. It is, at least for me, and even out of those nominations, it's like far from the best narrative. Like, now, just for everyone who's curious, it's 13 Sentinels, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and Last of Us.
Yep.
So for you, out of curiosity, because I want to know, would you pick 13 Sentinels as best narrative?
Well, yes, because I only played FF7. So, yes, 13 Sentinels definitely over FF7 for this category. I haven't played the other three. I want to play Ghost, though, at some point.
Ghost is really good, especially on PS5.
Yep.
It's a tough one, because, like, obviously, I probably sound
would
like... Oh, no, 100% not. It would be probably... I would actually put it, like, either tied or right below Ghost. I actually think the story that Ghost does isn't like wholly unique, but I think like its setting and its characters gets a lot of pass. I think narrative is a tie probably for me with like either Last of Us or FF7. Last of Us, just because that story just took me to so many places I didn't think I was like able to really go, let alone with Final Fantasy VII Remake of like, oh my god, like no matter whether you love that game or not, what they do with the story of Final Fantasy VII is insane. Like, no game made me have, like, I never had longer discussions with people about a game after beating it more than FF7, just because it was like,
oh, that's fair.
Because like, when you beat it, whether you think the ending of FF7 Remake is total dog shit or the most brilliant thing ever, that ending gives you like opinions. And like same with The Last of Us, of like, I know people who like, when I beat The Last of Us, I was like crying of like, oh my god, like this is such an amazing like story, like working my way through all the emotions for it. And then I also have friends who, when they beat The Last of Us, were like, this is the worst game I've ever played in my life. And like, I couldn't agree, like I couldn't disagree less with those people. But it's like, I like, whether you appreciate it or not, that's like one of my favorite things is when a game story has that opinion, like, I mean, has that effect on you of like, wow, it really resonates with people. So FF7 and Last of Us are really special for that. But like 13 Sentinels, nobody I know who beat that game, like that ending doesn't really give you a lot to talk about. That ending is just a ending.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. The thing is that I want to ask you about, because I have no clue, but what I keep hearing about The Last of Us Part 2 is that there's a certain part of the story that is problematic. That's the biggest complaint that I keep hearing about this game is the story. So when I saw it in this category, I was like, oh, I keep hearing that the problem with this game is the story. Can you explain to me briefly what's going on here? Because I have no clue. I didn't enjoy the first game, so I didn't try this one.
And, yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, the only time I'd ever tell someone not to try Last of Us Part 2 is literally, did you hate the first one? Because the 2 is just everything about the first one, but cranked up to 11. I don't get to talk to a lot of people who hate the game in that sense of, like, oh my god, this was problematic. Because, like, literally, the people I know who don't like the game literally just didn't like the ending. Which, like, I get it, it's fine. Same with, like, Danganronpa V3. There's, like, that game is not holding your hand. Like, did you beat The Last of Us 1?
Oh, no, yeah. The game, I don't hate it. It's just, I can see the quality. I can see why people like it. It's just not for me.
No. I was just because what's so funny about Part 2 is Part 1 does the same thing. When Part 1 ends, it doesn't give you a choice. It's doing something that probably people don't agree with. But because of, I think, who was doing it and what was going on, that's why a lot of people are really against it. So like, when Part 1 ends, its ending is very much a surprise and kind of like a darker ending. But because it was in your character's favor, I think a lot of people took away from that ending as, whoa, that's such a crazy dark ending that's really interesting. But with Part 2, without getting into spoilers, like when Part 2 ends, you're literally an empty shell. You're barely there, and it's all your fault. And you're just stuck there with nothing to reflect on all the decisions that this character made as you helped control them, but you never made any of the choices that the main characters really do in the story, and you are just stuck there looking at what happened. And guess what? Unlike the ending of the first Last of Us, your character did something you probably wouldn't have done, and they just have to live with those decisions. Now, I took that as like, wow, that's like really, really powerful. Like, not a lot of games do that. And I think like that was really great. But then there's also a lot of people who kind of, whether they feel justified or wanted to express something, because they couldn't get the ending they felt like had been set up for them or had been deserved, they then feel like it kind of taints the whole experience, which I've never really got. I love talking to people about The Last of Us Part 2, but I just don't ever really get that chance, unfortunately. Like, I would love nothing more. And, like, by the way, just wait. When Game of the Year talk comes up, like, unless something really snaps, like, I'm very surprised with how much I'm loving Hyrule Warriors, Yakuza, and even Demon Souls. I don't know if they're going to surpass Last of Us, so like right now Last of Us is still my Game of the Year nomination personally. But it was just so funny because I remember when the game came out and I would tweet people about it, they'd be like, oh my god, like how can you love this game? Because like according to Twitter, if you love this game, you're the biggest soy boy simp of all time and you white knight everybody. But like when you actually have the discussion about it, which like you don't really get that often, it's just so funny of like, just like talk about it, because whether you hate Last of Us or not, there are so many cool discussions to be had there. And like I said, I love talking to my friends who aren't the biggest fans of it, but even they can still say like, yeah, well the gameplay was sweet, and like, oh my god, it was gorgeous, and the music was amazing. Like, so I think like once you like take that kind of bias out of your head in terms of like, this game didn't do everything I wanted it to, because like it's pretty much like the definition of a not safe sequel. Like, Last of Us just does everything dangerous it possibly could, and obviously it benefits from that in a lot of ways. You see, like, it has the most nominations out of every game here this year.
It's
but
not
also,
surprising.
yeah, but then you also look at the people's reception to it online, and there are just as many people who will praise that game as say as it is, like, the like, downfall of Naughty Dog, which I find just too funny.
Okay, that's fair. So, for now, still your Game of the Year, and it's probably going to keep that place.
I gotta do a lot of I gotta do a lot of thinking though. I still haven't beaten Ghost of Tsushima. I don't think that would beat it, but also remember, Game of the Year is not Story of the Year. It is like overall. Also, Final Fantasy is really, really close on that list. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I have so many happy feelings and associations for. So like, usually what I like to do is once we kind of get to the point of like, okay, there's nothing else coming out this year that's going to like sway me one way or the other, I like to do at least one little kind of run through and check and sort of see where I'm at emotionally. Because like, remember, 9 months ago feels like 9 years ago. 9 months ago, Scramble came out. Just like, let that sink into your head.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Time flies by really fast. So that was game of the year.
Well,
Who's
hold
gonna
on.
win?
Yeah, no, that's the thing that I wanted to ask you. So for you, now at least if we're talking Game of the Year nominations, I gotta say I was surprised Doom was nominated. I think that was kind of a gimme where people were just like, let's give it to Doom, I guess.
Yeah, agreed.
It goes Doom, FF7, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing, and Last of Us. So what I want to ask you, not what's your Game of the Year first, is who do you think is going to win this for the Game Awards?
Looking at the winners from the last few years because I've been watching those events, and the way that they pick the winners, I think Animal Crossing is gonna get it for the impact that it had and the number of players and how like I have a hard time saying what I want to say here, but everyone talked about this game, and the fact that it released during a worldwide pandemic definitely helped. And for all those reasons and the positive impact that it had on people during this time, I think they're gonna give it to Animal Crossing. But if it's not Animal Crossing, it's The Last of Us Part Two.
So you kind of got to where I'm thinking of in reverse. So I think it's going to be like last year. If you remember last year, everyone was like, "Oh my God, is it going to be?" Oh my gosh, now I'm trying to remember like what the big games of last year were. Last year was such a weird year.
That's just Sekiro one.
I know Sekiro won, but remember it was like a tie between a bunch of other games. People were like, "Oh, could it be this, or this?"
I don't
And
remember.
Sekiro was like everyone's last pick to win, but because the votes were all so split, that's why Sekiro won. And I think Animal Crossing is going to be the same way. I think people are going to be
Okay.
really vocal for Final Fantasy. People are going to be really vocal for Last of Us. And then the silent majority of Animal Crossing is just going to come over and just wave everything over.
That's a good prediction. You see, last year, because I'm curious now, last year Game of the Year was Control, Sekiro, Death Stranding. Oh, Death Stranding.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, yeah.
RE2, Smash Ultimate, and The Outer. What the hell? The Outer Worlds.
Yeah,
Okay.
the big two. Everyone was like, okay, it's split between this
Death
is
Stranding.
was yeah, Death Stranding and Control, and maybe a little bit RE2. But yeah, because of how split, like out of all of those, really the only one that's kind of an outlier is like to me, Outer Worlds. Like I could have seen it
Yeah.
going to any of the other five, even Smash Brothers. But because Sekiro is just kind of that neutral, popular game, that's then why it's like, oh, okay. Like even going back and looking at 2018 Game of the Year choices, like, like this is crazy. The 2018 ones, it was like Celeste, Spider-Man 2018, God of War, Red Dead, Monster Hunter World, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Like those games are all so different.
Yep. And God of War 1, of course,
As it should.
which was fair. Yep, definitely. Now the other categories that are interesting, like we talked about narrative, art direction, score, music. What about music? Doom is Doom again. Doom. Final Fantasy VII Remake 80s. It's always the same games this year. 80s.
This
Ori and the Will
year,
of the
this
Wisps.
year was definitely one of those ones of like you're gonna see a lot of the same because there were so many big games, but then at the same time, the games that were big ticked so many boxes. You know,
Yeah.
what I gotta ask for you is hold on. I'm trying to think of something else. No, the one I wanted to ask you before we actually get into music. So for you, what is right now, like as it is, your go to, like what is best game of the year for David?
13 Sentinels this year.
Do you
Personally,
think
that's the game that I
anything?
enjoyed the most.
Do you think anything has the chance of surpassing it?
Maybe Yakuza. Maybe. I don't know. I have to play it. But from what I've
You
seen,
need to sink another 70 hours into it, then you'll be good.
yep. Because for now, but there was so many great games this year. I played Tokyo Mirage Sessions for the first time. I really liked it. Xenoblade, FF7. What else did I play this year?
Did you
Of
play
course,
RE3?
13 Sentinels. No, I haven't.
Oh man, RE3 is
What
really
else
good.
released this year?
So that was one of the funny things I was talking about on Yarly's podcast is Yarly had the audacity to say this to my face. He said, I don't know, dude, I think this year just was really bad. Like, there weren't a lot of, like, games that, like, there weren't a lot, like, his words exactly were, like, there weren't a lot of good games that came out. And what I did is I opened up the release calendar of all games coming in 2020, and I think for, like, 5 minutes straight, I just list off games that came out, like whether you think they're good or not. Like 2020 is undoubtedly an insane year for video games. Like we had a sequel to Deadly Premonitions come out, a remake to Resident Evil 3 and Final Fantasy 7. My god, my wife just scared the fucking life out of me. Oh my god. I just fucking got murdered. Oh my god.
That reaction was golden, though.
Woo! Thank god there's no video this time. Thank you for the water. Okay, but yeah, so for me at least, 2020 is easily going to go down as like one of the best like game years ever. Because like even think about it like this: we had 2 new consoles launched this year, and there's not a bad launch lineup between even both. Like say what you will about Xbox's exclusives, like these systems launched with a new Assassin's Creed, a brand new Watch Dogs, a new Demon's Souls remake, a new Spider-Man game, a new Sackboy game, like Astro, like a new Tetris Effect, like add-on and something. Like there wasn't like even if you just bought Xbox, like yeah, take out the argument of like okay if there's no exclusives, whatever, like. Yakuza 7 was a launch game. Like that's like such like a great thing to like just kind of launch with. Like a pretty well received Call of Duty was like launched at the same time. Like no matter what you bought console wise, there was a ton of stuff to already play on there without even getting into backwards compatibility.
And you're saying this to the guy who bought 2 consoles and no games with them.
Well, yeah, but like even you right now, you're not sitting there going like, what am I gonna play on these things?
Oh no, bruh, no, I have the biggest backlog here. I mean, I just this weekend I bought God of War. I bought a bunch of Xbox games that I plan on playing backwards compatible, like some random stuff like Final Fantasy Type O HD that I bought on Xbox One for $5.
What a clutch get!
Like random stuff like Oblivion that I had never played.
Just think about this: you'll be playing an HD remaster of a PSP game on your new $500 system.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, there's games that I want to play, but I'm not gonna. I don't want to pay 60 for, or not 60. I don't want to pay 70 for Spider-Man because I didn't play the first one either. For the games that I want to play like this, that I'm not so excited to play them, like Age of Calamity, for example, I can wait. Like Gears Tactics that we talked about before, I can wait. I'm gonna wait because they're not like Nintendo games. I know that in a year I'm gonna get them for like $20.
Gears Tactics is already 50% off. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and I'm still owning on to it. Here in Canada, full price is $79.99, and Gears is $39 at the moment.
David, I hope you saw and enjoyed my tweet yesterday about Persona's Australian price tag.
Was it like that was crazy expensive,
99
right?
Australian dollars, and I'm like, oh my god.
Dude, that was the time that you were on my show before that we talked, or was it? No, it was when I was on your show the first time that we checked a bunch of random stuff on Amazon and stuff like that, and the P4 anime was like $600 or something in Canada for
can't
for
do that, man. Can't
regular DVD. It's
can't
crazy.
Recommend that. No,
dude. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna watch it online somewhere at this point. I'm not that crazy.
Well, Khalil brings up a good point. 2 things, actually. Number one, speaking of how crazy 2020 is, it's like, even just the little stuff. Like, Persona 4 Golden came out on Steam this year.
Yeah.
Like, just like, whether you're a big game or small, like, so many, like, little, just crazy things added up. The other thing you want to talk about that I know we need to get to is best role-playing game. So, yeah, Game Awards announced. The nominees are FF7 Remake, Genshin Impact, P5R, Wasteland 3, and Yakuza 7. So, like, pretty bog standard list. My big thing is this. I get why the nominees are there. I personally think Xenoblade got super duper snubbed. Especially because the argument anyone might have for why you don't nominate Xenoblade is literally, well, Xenoblade is everything that P5R adds on to the original. But what's so funny about it is, like, this is a weird one. Of like, I think the obvious answer is FF7's going to win, and that is my choice out of everything I've played. But I gotta be honest, dude, and I know you haven't played it. The more I play Yakuza 7, the more that I'm just like, God, this is a great video game. Like, Yakuza 7 is just so much fun and such an interesting game. And I even had this discussion with my wife yesterday of, like, we were playing it and just, like, in a homeless camp, and there was this, like, really interesting, like, cutscene going on. And I was, like, talking to her, I was like, how refreshing is it that I'm playing a JRPG and there hasn't been a single Japanese high schooler? Like, yep. and she agreed, and she's like, yeah, like, it gets pretty boring after a while, because you just see that trope over and over and over. Because, like, I think one of our biggest complaints, like, we'll give Megaten a lot, or even just Atlas games in general, it's like, we get it. You like Tokyo, and you like them all being teenagers. But, like, look at Yakuza 7. Its main...
Or Xenoblade.
It's, well, specifically at least Yakuza, just because I think that one is so non-tropey, which is funny because of how many tropes it does in other weird ways. But, like, Yakuza, your main protagonist, Ichiban, is over 40 years old. Like, it is a dude who spent 18 plus years in prison, and he is a charismatic, like, Goku type of just, like, he doesn't let things get him down too easy. He's just got, like, what's so funny is, like, and even without even going into the other characters, like, the cast of Yakuza 7 is just so wholesome and likable, and even if they're not, like, happy-go-lucky like Ichiban, they all have so many different unique aspects to them that it's just like, wow. Like, if this really keeps up, I wouldn't be surprised if at least the story and setting... Because, like, Yakuza 7's a weird case of, like, everyone I've heard who's beaten it, this even goes back to the Japanese version, its story is amazing. Like, it just continues and goes in really, really interesting places. The place where it might kind of let you down is, depending on how you play, the ending gets really, really grindy. So I'm not sure if that's going to actually affect my opinion of it too much by the end, especially because of how long of a game it is. But, like, man, I cannot tell you how much I would love to finish this year and say that Yakuza 7 is a better RPG than Persona 5. Like, that would make me feel so happy and vindicated of, like, look at this game. It is made by the same fucking publisher. It does all the things that everyone always wants. It looks better. Like, I don't think it is controversial to say that, like, at least, like, for me personally, if I'm looking at Persona 5 Royal, even with all of its presentational, like, who's its and what's it, I think that as a just base game to look at right now, Yakuza 7 looks more fun and looks better. Like, even just, like, obviously, just, resolution-wise, I think even, like, there's no question there.
Yeah, for sure. But, I mean, it's the art direction, I feel like, will distinguish Persona 5 and will maybe put it higher on most people's list because of the art direction. It's when you look at Persona 5 and the menus and all of that, there's the wow factor here. When you look at Yakuza Like a Dragon, yeah, it looks great in general, but there's not that wow unique factor that you find in P5, I think, personally.
That is true, and also, and I think that's one of the benefits that FF7 has of it's actually doing both. It has a overly kind of anime look to it, but Final Fantasy VII is gorgeous. It is sickeningly pretty. Like, this game is just, like, so great. Like, as long as you're not looking at Cloud's apartment door, it is, like, one of the prettiest games I've ever seen.
That door. Oh yeah, no, it's beautiful, and I played it on my base PS4, and it's really beautiful. It's very impressive. Those characters are so iconic as well that when you see them with those graphics, it's like, wow, crazy.
So before we finish talking about Game Awards, I gotta ask you, what is your current game of the year for RPG?
Well, you see, Xenoblade got snubbed.
Well, no, this is not even going with the nominees. This is just personal David pick. Oh, RPG of the year.
I'd have to go with Royal, personally. I mean, overlooking just as a game, just overlooking the fact that it's a remaster, if I can say that. It's a
I don't know. Are we allowed to call it a remaster when it's still on the same system it launched on?
I don't know. A re-release. Sorry. Even if it's a re-release, I feel like it is still a very good game. It is still a very good game for me. I know that there's issues with the pacing of the story and all, but it's just I don't know. I think I played it at the right time in my life that it had an impact and I adored this game so much. There's no denying that other games like Xenoblade or like FF7 are amazing. Yakuza, I'm sure, will be amazing, but unfortunately, thanks to Pix and Love, I haven't played this one yet. Can't wait to play it. Maybe Yakuza will surpass it because, as you mentioned, yeah, the characters in the Yakuza games are always amazing. The story in the Yakuza games are always amazing. Is always amazing. The soundtrack is always amazing. So I have high expectations for this one, and I'm a big turn-based RPG fan. When I heard that they were going turn-based with Yakuza 7, I was hyped. I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea. That's a great move."
I am really, really excited to get more friends playing Yakuza just so I can like actually talk about it more on the podcast. Of just like, I really want to get into what makes the RPG nature of this game just so good because as an RPG, it's so funny that like originally like the joke was people looking at it and being like, "Oh, they made Persona 5 into Yakuza or whatever," but like its RPG system is like a love letter to 90s RPGs specifically that like it's like it is so few Persona comparisons in its actual gameplay that it's like almost hilarious of like it takes more from Paper Mario or Super Mario RPG than anything Persona.
Oh yeah, or Dragon Quest. With all
Oh my
those
yeah, and like
references.
as a huge Dragon Quest fan, like the amount of just like little sound effects and stuff like, and man, I'm so glad, like so glad that the Square gave them permission in the West as well to actually call it Dragon Quest. Like my greatest fear would have been like they had to like call it like a dragon or like even like if they had to call it like Dragon Warrior or like something like the fact that they still just call it Dragon Quest, it makes it
It's
so
cool.
authentic. I love that so
Oh
much.
yeah. For sure, for sure. No, I can't wait to play this one. I feel like, yeah, it might surpass it. What's yours, though? RPG.
It's tough. It's probably FF7. It is split. It is split between so many just because I think RPGs had such a great renaissance this year. Like obviously, AAA RPGs. There's not that
Oh,
many, but
yeah.
I mean, really, what year does have a ton of AAA RPGs? But like even just stuff like indie games I played, or even just like TMS. Like TMS is like honestly like one of my like top 3 RPGs I played this year, just because like I had so much fun playing that on my Switch. But yeah, Final Fantasy is just gonna be really really hard to draw. But man, speaking of playing on my Switch, I've got to talk to you because I have not had anyone else to talk to besides my wife about this. How amazing is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity?
Oh man, I like. Yeah, let's talk about it. I have a lot to say for this one, as you can see with my little little page that I sent you. It's like the game that I wanted to talk about. It's a rough draft that I sent you, but yeah, there's a lot of things that I really love about this game, and I think I told you that before, but I'm not the biggest performance guy. But for real, this one, it's weird. I don't get it. Like in certain missions, you get as many enemies as in other missions, but in mission A, it's running perfectly fine, or at least it's still enjoyable. And then you play mission B with as many enemies on screen, and it drops. It drops to like freaking 2 frames a second. It's crazy. I don't understand. I need someone to explain to me what's going on because it's like the same field, same number of enemies, but in one mission it's lagging and not in the other one. I don't get it.
Okay, so David, I'm your go-to guy. I'm ready to help you with this. So, for
Please do.
starters, I need to know. For starters, I need to know this. How are you playing it? Are you primarily playing docked or portable?
I'd say 50-50 for now.
Okay, so the big one is this, and also actually another question before I go too much into it. How much of the demo did you play?
I completed it.
Did you notice that there was a day one patch when the full game came out?
I haven't.
So the day one patch dramatically improved the frame rate
Okay.
and just performance in general. Basically, it added a lot more pop-in to keep number of enemies on screen without really tanking it. So as someone who I have played as much of this game co-op as I have solo, and playing this co-op, whether you're in portable or docked, is severely going to like drop your frames. And also, we're coming in this weird position of we've been now playing on these new next-gen systems, which are almost always like locked to 60 or so, or looking at 4K, and now we're playing these games that are like 1080, barely handling 30. So it is a very jarring difference, but I have to say, for what it's accomplishing, I'm amazed that actually going back and forth from PlayStation 5 to Age of Calamity is holding up so well. But so the inconsistencies you're talking about mostly have to come from two factors. The largest one is what map you're on. So if you're actually going through like one of the main major maps where it has like, because I don't know if you've like really noticed, but like compared to other Warriors games, when you're doing a main map, like even like that first mission in Hyrule Field, those are enormous maps. Like Dynasty Warrior maps are usually pretty large, but there are a lot of narrow hallways and corridors. Whereas Age of Calamity's maps, they are crazy large, and even when they're kind of narrow, they are still like way more wide open than you're ever used to with other Warriors type games. So the map will definitely depend. When you're doing a main mission, yeah, you're gonna see a lot more chugging because it just has this enormous map loaded in. Now, then compared to, like you're saying, if you're doing a side mission or like one of your challenges for like, oh, I want to learn a new one-handed weapon move or a spear move, those maps are a lot more smaller, a lot more contained, and always kind of keep to that locked 30 a lot more and look smooth. So what's like funny about it then is like, then depending on really what you're doing, it's just going to be really inconsistent, but like, I think because like of how I've played so many Switch games that are already not like technically the most like really efficient and stuff like that, even though Hyrule Warriors like Age of Calamity is pretty uneven in terms of its like presentation, I think it's just a testament to how fun it is to play it, that even with how uneven its framing is, or even its graphics, and especially, oh my god, like, if you're playing co-op, and you're doing, like, two special moves right next to each other in a large group of enemies, literally, like, I looked, when I was playing with my wife last night, I looked at her, and I was like, I think I just saw the Switch melt. Like, we did so much, like, slow down, I was, like, ready for it just to stop, and just be like, can't do it, man. It was just like it was so like pushing it, but because these games are not like absolutely like, okay, you have to be pixel perfect, attacks have to be this way. Like obviously, yeah, it can get a lot harder, but it hasn't affected any of our enjoyment of the fun. So like, it's like it would be something I bring up in my official review as, yeah, it would have been nice to really have this be a little more even or well-rounded in terms of its presentation, but for what they're accomplishing, for the maps being as big as they are, for the systems being as crazy as they are, for the fact that like at no point does this game feel like I'm playing a Dynasty Warriors, it just feels like I'm playing Breath of the Wild,
something else
is so commendable, and the fact that this is only on Switch is like even more impressive just because of how outdated that hardware is. Like when you're playing Scramble on Switch, it doesn't impress you that you're playing it. Like, Scramble on Switch is like someone modded the PS3 version of Persona 5 into a Warriors game. That's kind of what it feels like. And then when you're playing it at 60, you're like, okay, I get it now. I see what they wanted. But because this was just limited to one hardware SKU, they really just kind of like, okay, we know what we're working with. Let's just crank the bar to the max and just make it as fun as possible while getting, like, because, like, it's just so funny to think that, like, even though these are made by the same developers, like Omega Force, the lessons they learned from Scramble going into Age of Calamity is just so apparent, but it kind of turned my, like, fear, in quotes, into reality of, like, now, Age of Calamity is so good. I'm now getting to the point, now obviously we're both still pretty early, but, like, it is so much fun that I think now, if you're like got to a point where I'm living in a post-Scramble world, what do I play, Age of Calamity or Scramble? If you don't care about either story one more than the other, it's like, yeah, like I don't know how you look at both of these and think that Age of Calamity isn't the more fun game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I started with a bit of negativity, but I'm having a blast with this one. I played a lot of it actually because I'm not far in the story, but I'm completing all the side missions that I can complete. Like all of my characters are over level 20 at the moment. It's really fun. There's one thing that I just don't enjoy personally. It's the missions with the divine beasts. I don't like it. it feels clunky. I'm not able to aim properly. Maybe I just suck. Maybe I'll get used to it. But I don't like it. I'm not having fun in those missions. But other missions, the standard missions, I'm having so much fun. Just as you mentioned, it feels like a prequel to Breath of the Wild. It doesn't feel, of course, it's still a Muso game, but it doesn't like comparing it to the original Hyrule Warriors. This is where you see the difference. It's not just okay. Let's put Zelda characters in a Muso game. It's just its own thing. It's very unique from like the cutscenes, the music, everything is like, wow. It is Breath of the Wild here, and it works because it's the war before the Calamity. So it's like it just works. When they announced this one, I was like, oh, that's a very good idea. That's a very good idea, and we have proof it works. It works perfectly fine. I'm having a blast with it.
So, with the Divine Beasts, I can't really defend them too much. Like, for me, I love it. It's like, it is junk food, the level. Like, playing them, the character models are basically, like, super, super tiny little pixels, but, like, they're just tiny little 2 to 5 minute levels of you just walk forward, do a couple of super attacks, and just devastate everything in your way. And I think from a level of fun, your mileage is definitely going to vary. It's very gimmicky. It's not meant to be challenging. But just like, as just a fanboy, I had so much fun playing those. Of like, whether I was using the motion controls or just using the analog sticks, I was like, this is... Like, I just had so much fun with the Divine Beast. Of like, even when I saw it in trailers, it was like, oof. Like, these levels, like depending on what you're doing, like, the frame rate will definitely chug just because of, like, even at how low quality the enemy, like, models are. Like, you're doing, like, hundreds of damage at a time, like, for all of them. And I remember just, when you do, like, your super beam with any of them, and if you actually save up enough enemies and just literally wipe out 1,000 in a move, it was just so stupid, like, just mindless fun for me. Just like, this is, like, what I want. Like, because with the Divine Beast like that, like, they had hyped them up for so long, you kind of, like, anything less than stupid, crazy, overpowerful would almost be at a disservice to what those Divine Beasts were, like, hyped up to be.
Yeah, that's fair. It's just, I don't know, it's the way that you control them and the purpose of the missions that I'm like, I don't know, feels unnecessary to me. But that's probably a controversial opinion. I haven't talked to many people who played it for now. The one thing that I heard though is that and I don't know if you've been spoiled or anything. I haven't, so let's not jump into spoilers.
No, I am very much covering my ears in terms of. Cool. Like, I don't even know the full roster of this. Like, I don't even. Okay. I don't want to have any of that even spoiled.
No, same. So for now, I'm spoilers free, and I'm not gonna spoil anything. But I heard that the ending for this game was not that great from a certain number of people, actually.
I think that one's also really, really subjective. I mean, I know just as many people who say they like the ending of P5 as, like, I think, like, I found somebody on Twitter. Someone was like, the ending of Persona 5 is, like, literally, like, an insult to, like, cognitive reason and liking it. Like, it, like, makes me worry about you. It's like, man, that's so true, because, like, I'll never forget the first time I beat P5. I was like, people like this game? Like, P5's vanilla original ending to me was so bad that, like, if I didn't have Royal to immediately start playing, I would have been like, dude, what, like, what brain-eating disease did people have for the last 3 years? Like, why did people like the ending of, like, vanilla? It's so strange to me.
Well, I told you before, there's issues there. It's still a good game, but there's issues for real.
And also, I mean, like, I think it's also one of those things of, like, the people who have kind of played it are also definitely, like, either rushing to the ending or, like, have been trying to, like, play it for review. So
probably.
I think also the mileage may vary for that. Like, I know just me people who think the story in Breath of the Wild sucks as people who love it. Because it is one of those things of, like, the way that even both use story. Like, even look at Age of Calamity. Age of Calamity's story, it's not explaining to you who the Guardians are. It's not explaining to you that Zelda is really... Like, it does a little bit, but, like, even Age of Calamity, if you want to understand the story, you still need to go in there with the knowledge you have done with all of, not only the original Breath of the Wild, but even the DLC story.
Yeah, for sure. But personally, for me, even in just going back to the Divine Beasts, even in the original game in Breath of the Wild, I felt like they weren't that special. Like I would have preferred regular dungeons, and I enjoyed the shrines more than the divine beast. Sorry, but that's just me.
Definitely understand. Like I was in the sense of like I loved the Divine Beast. I thought the mechanics were interesting, and because you're only really doing that like 4 times, yeah, it's the same thing over and over and over. But because the locales were different, the puzzles are just varied enough. But then at the same time, people are like, "Hey, I wanted real dungeons. I really wanted to have better unlocks." Because like think about it, you have everything you really need item wise within the first like 2 hours of that game. Like you're never unlocking anything that substantial.
That wasn't necessarily my problem. My problem was just overall the design of the divine beasts. They were like all the same in the Zelda games. It's like you go through so many dungeons and they're so different from one to another. Every time there was that wow factor, I was like, oh man, I'm in that volcano. It's new. It's very different. Now in Breath of the Wild, you get in the first divine beast and you're like, oh wow, that's cool. The puzzles are extremely good in the 4 of them, in my opinion. You jump into the next one, you're like, oh well.
Did you beat all of DLC 2 for Breath of the Wild, the one that was pretty much majorly story? When I was playing through that one, that was like, oh my god, like now I really can't wait for Breath of the Wild 2, because that was when they were really stretching their legs in terms of, okay, we're going to really kind of redefine what puzzles are for this. We're not just going to make it endless shrines. Like, they made interesting new uses for world puzzles. Like, the fact that finding the DLC dungeon is its own mission in that DLC just, like, put so much, like, work into, like, the effort of finding it, I thought was so nice. Of just, like... That one DLC like kind of gave me a lot more faith into like, hey, they know what they're going to be doing by the time we do finally get Breath of the Wild. And even then, looking at how the Koei Tecmo team working with Age of Calamity, just using stuff like that into such smart ways of like all the weapons looking different, feeling different, playing different, even little things like every character, their Sheikah stones are different. Everyone uses ice different. Everyone uses bombs different. Like, nobody feels the same. And, like, the amount of attention and detail to, like, when you have those smaller rosters, like, hey, it's fun to look at something like a Dynasty Warrior or Warriors Orochi and be like, holy shit, there's, like, over 100 characters. You're going to get a lot of filler. You're going to get a lot of characters who are doing the same. But in these smaller cast games like Persona 5 Scramble, nobody in Scramble plays the same. Everyone, even if they're doing the similar like attributes or skills, everybody feels the same. Everyone is a different weight. Everyone, like, even like one of my favorite things of, and this even went to like the original Persona 5, the first thing I would always do with a new character in Persona 5, whether it be Scramble, Royal, or Vanilla, what did the gun feel like? I wanted to know what it felt like when you lift up the gun and just laid all of your ammo into somebody. And like that, like they are really good at like making those little attacks really feel different.
Yep, that's important as well. Like, just as you mentioned, and I really do feel like in the sequel, in Breath of the Wild 2, they're gonna improve on. They're just gonna keep everything that made the first one great and improve on everything else. I'm sure that we're gonna get more story sequences like we wanted in the first game, and it worked for the first game. I'm not complaining; it worked. But the second game has so much potential,
Kilimo brings up a great thing I have to say in Scramble. Kilimo says I really want to play as Makoto in Scramble. Makoto as the only hand-to-hand fist user is so much fun. By the time you finally get to play as her, she is because like. I think, especially with giant arena fighters like that, hand-to-hand combat characters are really hard to be fun, you know? And especially, like, even her gun, because it's a revolver, it's not, like, she's not a flashy, fast, wham-bam, thank you ma'am, doing a sword combo kind of stuff, and even with Johanna, but what they do with her in the sense of, like, her combos are heavy. Like, when you're doing Makoto's, like, combos, they feel like you could just have an oof sound effect at the end of them. They're that good. And even, like, Makoto is almost, like, even cheating, because she is just, like, one of the most fun characters to travel around, because even Makoto, she has the unique ability of you can actually just straight up ride Johanna around on the bike, whether it be in or out of a battle. So, like, stuff like that of just, like, every little character being different. Like, riding around as Johanna on a bike feels different than whether you're a Morgana riding around in the cat bus. Like, they all have a different feel and they all have different attacks.
Oh, yeah. No, I can't wait to play this one. But at this point, I'm like, we'll get it when we'll get it. I'm not crying anymore for
I gotta
scramble.
ask though. Talking about Hyrule Warriors, who is your go-to play? Like, who's your favorite to play as right now? And if it is like someone like Link who has different attacks, who is who is your like go-to like either weapon loadout or like what's like the one that you're really feeling right now? Like for me, I just unlocked him and I've done a couple of missions with him. Oh my god, I am so gay for Rivali. Rivali is
Oh yeah.
so much fun and is so like I thought Impa was OP. Rivali is super OP.
Yep. No, yeah, he's cool. Great pick. Great pick. Personally, for me, it's Urbosa. I
Urbosa.
just like.
Oh my
Oh
god,
yeah,
yeah.
she's so cool.
The lightning, like the way you charge, like
Yeah.
her AOE's are amazing. Like when we were
Yeah.
melting the screen yesterday, we were doing Urbosa's AOE weak attack along with Mifa's, so both just loaded the
Ouch.
screen with particle effects, and that's like because like think about it, when you have Urbosa's max lightning, it just blinds the whole screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, I like her so much. Like her dash attack, it's so cool. And just overall her character, I just like it so much. The way that she talks, her reactions, the way that she responds to freaking Rivali when he's being a jerk to Link, it's cool. I really like her. Personally, she's my favorite. And plus, when you have to reload your thunder, you're going freaking Super Saiyan, reloading your thunder. It's really cool. I just feel like she's extremely fun to play as personally. But Rivali is definitely like my in the four champions. He's the second one for me, easy.
I just love how like everybody I have had a oh man moment.
Yeah,
Like even just little stuff of like I was starting to think like after I unlocked Empa, I'm like, why would I ever play as Link now? Link is like the most
yeah.
boring character in the whole game. But because Link has so many different types of weapons, like when I started using the spear, I was like, oh, like the spear is fast.
Yeah.
Like the spear does like so much damage, and I think that's one of the smart things about how if you want to like do those side missions, they have the ones that are just dedicated to characters that really let you be like, hey, experiment with Daruk. Like when I unlocked Daruk, I was going off of I don't know how much you played of the original Hyrule Warriors. Did you?
Oh yeah, I played it on the Wii U.
Okay, so like I think two characters who got the most done dirty were Zora and Darunia. Darunia, especially for how slow he was and how like terrible. But like with when I was playing as Daruk, and then his run is just that endless rolling animation. And, like, realizing, like, oh my god, yeah, like, when he's walking, Daruk is the slowest character in the whole game, but he has so many charge attacks with his roll that, like, there was that one that if you hold his roll charge attack, his shield gets bigger, 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 like, 3 different times. Like, the amount of times I would just do that attack and just decimate entire forts and stuff, I was like, oh my god, like, Daruk is so much fun. Like, along with, like, all of his, like, unique abilities. But then even going into Mipha, because, like, I loved Mipha as a character, but I was like, it's kind of hard to do water characters right. Zora sort of like felt floaty and wasn't like the most fun. But then when you get into Mipha's of just like, oh yeah, she can just do endless amounts of teleporting, and every time she teleports, she does AoE damage. And just like getting into all of these characters of like finding out their little like niches. And even just other stuff of like, Zelda should be the worst character in the game. Zelda just has a useless iPad and can take pictures and use apps. Like, that's all she can do. She doesn't actually have a weapon. But even Zelda, they found ways to make unique of like, no, literally, she uses all of her Sheikah runes all the time, no matter what. And depending on how you combo with her, she is like so much fun of just like, even like the little stuff of like when she makes the ice stairs climbing up, like just that like little
nice.
attack animation, like she can just do so much damage of just like her attacks aren't the most powerful, but they just go into such crazy comboing potential of like even just other stuff of just like her bomb attack should be a super. The fact that that's not a super is insane. I'm just like, okay, you're going to be a giant bomb who shoots out many bombs as you walk forward. No, that's just a regular attack for her.
Oh yeah, the way that they were able to make them so unique from one to another is what makes this game so different than the first one.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
like
I think. Did you get the I'm not gonna spoil anything, but did you get the next character after the 4 champions or not?
no, I do
Okay,
not,
cool.
I do not. I'm still very early on, just because I'm juggling like so many different
Okay.
things. But I have to say,
you won't predict who it is, but you'll enjoy it. Let me just say that you'll enjoy him definitely.
I have to say that now Nintendo has two tough challenges after coming off of AOC. Number one, holy crap, the music is so good. Like, Breath of the Wild was very subtle and subdued with his music. Wow. Like, and obviously I shouldn't be, like, people shouldn't be that surprised. Like, I even, like, said this, that Koei Tecmo just is best in the biz for, like, high action, like, music and stuff. Like, Scramble, don't listen to it if you haven't already, but Scramble has some of the best music in the whole series, and no one from Atlus worked on Scramble. Like, the music is all Koei Tecmo just being Koei Tecmo, and that's, like, what makes it so good.
Mm-hmm. I listened to the whole thing already.
But, like, even just other things of, like, the other big one is, wow, if you are just Link in Breath of the Wild 2, it's gonna be, like, it's just gonna leave such a glaring hole now, especially just, like, other stuff of, like, having so many awesome characters, and not only just awesome characters to play as in AOC, but, like, how you are finally able to play as all these amazing women that, like, you just got to hear about, but only ever got to play as Link. I think, like, after all of this, it's going to be really hard to not just be like, hey, at the very least, like, you gotta make Zelda playable.
Oh, yeah. Will she be playable? I think so.
I think now
I hope so.
I know have a lot of like predictions for Breath of the Wild 2 just because like as much of a huge Zelda fan as I am, I don't really follow it too much. Like I do follow like a lot of the interviews and stuff for it, but like I would never really feel safe kind of predicting stuff. I mean, even you go back to people talking about Breath of the Wild when they thought when Link got revealed it was a girl. So like it's always such a crapshoot until these games are actually like in our hands, especially with how much Zelda games change. But like with this one, like especially with how popular Zelda is, like specifically the Breath of the Wild version, I think Nintendo has to at least kind of know like that they have a really interesting opportunity of whether it be hey you can switch out characters or even just like maybe make like co-op puzzles and stuff like that, or like even if Breath of the Wild 2 just had a hey you can play 2-player through the whole thing, I think would be really special.
Hard to see how they would do it though.
Yeah, it's tough. Like making a co-op game is always tough. Making it open world is infinitely tougher.
No, yeah, for sure. For now, I'm really enjoying my time with it. I can't wait to play more because it's that great. And the next character that you get after the champion was such a big surprise that I'm like, what's next? What are we gonna get next? It's crazy. I don't know what's gonna happen.
I'm so excited to just like keep playing. I think Nintendo has got such a good like the fact that this was their big fall game and no one had any idea about it 2 months ago just shows how confident they were in this. They were like, hey, like this game is going to kill. Like they've already shipped 3 million copies of this. They're like, hey, this is going to be our big action game if you want. And like I'm sure they are going to sell those 3 million very fast.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have a few questions that I got from someone on Twitter that I wanted to ask you. Yeah, there's one question in particular that I can't answer. This one, Persona 4 Ever on Twitter. E asks, after playing this, how would you scale Age of Calamity to Persona 5 Scramble? Which one do you prefer? Ooh. Well, you just started, so it's hard to tell.
I have actually been thinking about this a lot, just because I've compared a lot of the other Warrior games even to Scramble. Right now, Age of Calamity definitely makes a better start in terms of its just overall layout, because when you're playing Scramble, it's very linear. Yes, there are lots of side quests and requests that you can do, but like the more I keep playing and the more I'm doing everything on the map, like that world map as just being your hub of all of your missions, gameplay, shops, and collectibles is so smart, and just it is so satisfying just seeing things get either ticked off, like looking for certain items, like everything about that map I think is so much more satisfying than the RV. The RV is good from like a story perspective. I think as of now, Scramble has definitely got a beat in terms of the story and the presentation it's telling its story in, because obviously that's a way bigger deal to it, but in terms of just straight up raw fun and being a good Dynasty Warriors game, Age of Calamity already has Scramble beat in my book, just because it's like I can play a co-op, all the characters are insane, like just all these little things that like it's hard for Scramble to really compare just because it's doing things so differently. And as much as I love Scramble, like Scramble is like top 5 for me personally, like games of the year so far. Like Age of Calamity, it would have to really stumble after what I played in the first maybe like I think 4 or 5 hours I'm at.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying this one, but I mean, Scrabble's still a good game from what from what I
Oh yeah,
understand. So
like
it's cool.
100%. And this is just like me eating like having my cake and eating it too. It's like no matter what you
Yeah.
play, both of these games are amazing. But then having to like critique and compare them is the fun part. Where like honestly, most people are not going to be like most people who are Persona fans are probably also not planning on playing this. Like I'm not saying like you should be that way, but like even though these games are
Hmm.
very similar in a lot of ways, their fan bases are very different. The Zelda fan base does not have a lot of crossover with with the Persona or even like Megaton fan base.
Oh, I bet. No, they're way too different. And Zelda's just so much bigger,
Mm-hmm.
especially now.
Now I gotta ask you the
Cool,
next one because I'm very curious what you think. Do
for
you
sure.
think there will be any DLC for Age of Calamity?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know what they're gonna do though, because in the first game it was kind of a bland experience. So it was easy to imagine that they could just add more characters in. But for this one, what are they gonna do? I feel like if they're gonna add DLC, which I think that they will, we're gonna get it in form of like new missions with probably a couple of story missions as well.
Like obvious one would be this: like kind of take the best of DLC from Hyrule Warriors and move it into the map system of Age of Calamity, and by that I
Yeah.
mean make an Ocarina of Time map, make a Majora's Mask map, like they
Wow.
would with the adventure mode in Hyrule Warriors, but instead of making it 8-bit Zelda, it's just the same as this. You have quadrants, you can go across different quadrants, and obviously the maps are way, way, way smaller than the Breath of the Wild map, so like having a Ocarina of Time map is not going to be as much work in terms of filling it out for missions
Mhm.
or whatnot. And like you could make like an Ocarina of Time DLC map that's like 4 levels. That's like the main town, get a couple of like get like the major elements and stuff, and like really go there. And even if you're not adding like a lot of characters, just like even costumes, like the costumes alone were like some of the best part of Hyrule
Yep.
Warriors. So like I hope they do. It's hard to tell because they haven't announced anything, and normally they like to
Hmm.
announce it before, but it's hard to tell. Like I think
Hmm.
especially going even after Scramble, how Scramble's really not had anything. It's so kind of
Yeah.
up in the air. So as much as I would like love it, because I think this team when they're working in spin-offs, their DLC is usually the best parts of the game, ironically. But even with everything like Scramble, even with no DLC, was still a great game, even at the price I paid for it. Age of Calamity, from everything I've heard, is like a 40-hour story mode alone. So I'm like, all these games, content wise, are going to be fine. Like, and also,
Oh, for
let
sure.
alone like they're also going to get like tons of updates. Like Scramble is still getting updates. Scramble got an update like 2 weeks ago, so like I'm sure there will be updates including like, oh, here's a new weapon, or here's like a new costume for playing it, or like what the Warrior games love to do. And I know if you played Hyrule Warriors, you remember this. Remember all the free updates that would either be, oh, now you can play as these
Hmm.
villain characters, or now you can like level all the way up to like, because remember Hyrule Warriors 1 had a level cap of 100. Hyrule Warriors by the time you were playing it on Switch had a level cap of 225.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so like they know like how their audiences like to play these games. So like DLC or not, I think these games are still going to get support, whether it be in big or small ways. It's just like what really matters is like how they supported it and like how you enjoy the base experience.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if they're gonna go that far with DLC. I'd like it, but I'm pretty confident that they're gonna give us DLC. Maybe even at Mr. Jeff's show,
Oh my
we might
god!
see something.
If there was like if I'm gonna be very honest, and this is still being very very early in my impressions. If someone went up to me behind the scenes and said, Spencer, you have to pick. Scramble gets announced in English, or Hyrule Warriors 2 gets a season pass, I would pick Hyrule Warriors season pass. I'd be like,
Hmm.
give me more Zelda, because like obviously not the most fair thing. I've already played both, but it's like I I can just see DLC working and fitting in so much easier in this than it would with Scramble. Because with Scrambles, it's like you'll be lucky to get a new level just because those levels are so interconnected. They're big maps, they're big platforming. It's not like, hey, it's a field, and stuff like that. Whereas like obviously Zelda has such a bigger history and different things to kind of like call upon. Like with Persona, it's like okay, we can add Kasumi or Akechi. Whereas with Zelda, you have this 30 plus history of like games to call back on. And I mean, like, think about it. The fact that this game, like, I can't imagine this Zelda game coming out a year before the 35th anniversary of the series, not having any updates next year would just be insane.
I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised. Personally, just going back to it, I don't think we're going to see an announcement for Scramble at the Game Awards. Definitely not. People bring this up very often, but I don't feel it's going to happen.
See, it's funny. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen, but then at the same time, it seems like the easiest thing ever to announce of just say, the sequel to Persona 5, it's announced. Like, here you go. Like, it's the easiest game to sell, and yet no one wants to sell it to us.
Yeah, but it's still a... no, I don't want to say that. I don't know. Well, I'd like it. I just, for whatever reason, don't think it's gonna happen.
My hope of hopes is when I get my physical copy of Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, Sega is going to have forgot that they haven't announced the game, and there will be a little slip advert inside. Like, you know, sometimes you'll buy games from companies, they'll be like, hey, check out these games, you might like them for us. I hope, like, that's how Scramble's announced. Like, there's a little pamphlet inside Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 that says, coming spring 2021, Persona 5 Strikers, and everyone's like, what the fuck?
That would be very funny. Very cool. Oh, man. For me personally, that wraps things up for what I wanted to ask about Hyrule. No, one last thing. It's about Zelda, not Hyrule Warriors though. But will we see Breath of the Wild 2 at the Game Awards?
I want to say yes. I'm gonna say no, not because I don't think it's too soon. I think obviously they could show it. I think because Age of Calamity is definitely a stopgap game for them in terms of keeping hype without anything going. I think coming a month after Age of Calamity, yeah, that would bring a lot of hype into it, but you don't need it, you know? Like, everyone is still taught, like, as much as I love Zelda and as much as I love Breath of the Wild, we're going to see so many PS5 and Xbox games shown off at the Game Awards. And seeing a game that looks like Breath of the Wild looks great, but it definitely looks like a game that was running on a Wii U. Breath of the Wild 2 is not going to show us anything that's going to be like, whoa, did you see that? And then immediately, like, imagine how much of a gut punch it would be. Breath of the Wild 2 trailer is like, there, shows off some gameplay, check it out, there you go. And then immediately after, Cory Barlog walks on stage and shows a 5-minute demo of God of War 2.
Yep, that's an extremely good point. I didn't think about that, but it's a lot.
It's like, hey, you want to see our Zelda?
Yeah. Ouch. I think it would still be noticeable because of the art style, and it's still Zelda, but I get what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. And, yeah. Oh, man, you lowered my expectations for the show.
Thank you. Well, we'll end on a little bit of a more positive note, but it's like our final question, unless you have anything else. Kilimo asks in the chat, he says, do you really think Breath of the Wild 2 is coming next year? I say yes, because only the fact that I think genuinely that game was planning on coming out this year. Remember, it was announced last year with gameplay.
Yep.
And
not with gameplay though, just
it was in gameplay footage at least, but yeah it was like, because like obviously they're using the same engine and stuff for it.
Yeah.
I see it coming out, like, out of all the games I see coming out and not coming out next year, I say Breath of the Wild 2 is like, that seems like, because think about it, it's the 35th anniversary. Make that your big fall game.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what, like, it's gonna sell gangbusters. Like, it is the sequel to the best-selling Zelda game of all time. Like, and also, I just trust that team a whole lot more, because remember, again, they're not working from scratch. They're not working on a new engine. They're building off what they know. They're just honing their craft. And then compare that to something like Shin Megami Tensei 5. Fuck no, that game's not coming out next year. Even if everything was going right for that team, at this point, a year, like, seriously, we're a month and like a week away from 2021. And we will not see a single lick of actual gameplay footage until, like, at soonest, maybe 3 to 6 months. So it's like, dude, there's no way that they're just going to keep this game in so much secrecy and still release it worldwide. Like it's getting delayed again.
I agree with for Zelda. Yeah, I do agree. I still feel like SMT 5 is gonna get released next year personally, because because Nintendo is working with them, I'm sure, and they are, because worldwide release.
David, let me tell you, David, let me tell you about a little game that looks like hot fucking garbage called Bravely Default 2. That's also a game getting a worldwide release. Also helped out by Nintendo.
That's Square.
Square has the same deal that Atlas has with Nintendo. They are the exact same deal.
I don't doubt that. That's not my point. My point is Square does worldwide release.
Well,
not Atlas.
Yes, but again, it's going to be the Nintendo like publishing and like localization help more than anything with that. But like Atlas or Square, doesn't really matter. Nintendo is not a company that's going to rush a game out, even if they've said otherwise. Like, with the amount of time people have seen and even played because of the demo, Bravely Default 2. Like, you look at that game and you're like, you guys need more time for this game? Like, the game, like, it doesn't look better every time you delay it. Like, it keeps looking, like, more underwhelming. But it's just one of those things of, like, whether they release it on time or delay it until next year, Nintendo has nothing to gain from waiting or holding SMT 5. So, like, the longer it takes them, the better. And let's be real. Atlas is a company who delays everything. I like to remind people, this is the company who remastered Catherine Full Body, and all they were doing was putting it on PS4 and Vita, and even that got delayed 1.5 years. Like, if that got delayed 1.5 years from its initial release date, like, anything can get delayed.
You're making a lot of sense, and I agree. But there's one thing, and there's Potatis in my chat. He's saying it took us 3 years to get a. Yeah, it's still happening, and here's Nocturne, and I get where he's coming from, but I'm gonna take this point and look at it in another way. They took 3 years after the initial announcement, and I have my theory of why they announced it so soon. It took them 3 years to show something else. And when they showed something else, they gave us a date. Why would they give us a date now if they are not ready to release it or to show more at some point?
Easy answer number 1, shareholders. Easy answer number 2, because they had already built a game that was meant to help market SMT 5 in the form of Nocturne. And honestly, now that Nocturne has been released, let's be honest, Nocturne probably needed more development time, or at least more than 13 people to fucking work on it with all the issues it's had. So it's like, hey, even Nocturne probably should have been delayed, guys. Like, think about it. The fact that in America we might have a better version than that came out in Japan for a simple PS2 port, like, it's just sad. It's like, like, they're not known for rushing stuff out. Like, honestly, before Nocturne Remastered, when is the last time an Atlas port came out with bugs? Like, this bad, like, this noticeably, like, brought down, like, complaints. Like, it's very, very rare.
Did it ever happen? I don't even know.
It's happened, but like for stuff like I wouldn't really count. I wouldn't chalk up the Steam problems for Golden as like, oh, that's an Atlas problem, because like honestly, like that, like it mostly goes to where there's problems or when Atlas Japan isn't working on it. So look at Nocturne, look at Golden on Steam, look at Catherine Classic. Those all had launch bugs to some degree, mostly due to the fact that it wasn't even made by the actual company. So like Atlas is actually a pretty rigorous company when it comes to QA and developing. One of the things that people don't even know about them that much is when it comes to Atlas as a company, when they are finished building a game, they don't ever announce, oh, we're going gold, we're printing disc. When Atlas finishes a game, there's usually about 3 months left before they actually print the disc, and then they will just QA the holy hell out of it. They will just make sure that all of it's done. They will make sure all the DLC is done before everything is printed. That's why, like, by the time everything is said and done, like, no DLC for Royal was being worked on after Royal was shipped. When Royal was shipped, all of that DLC was on the disc for a reason.
Yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense. There's one thing that I want to go back to about what you said for SMT 5. That's a topic that I like to talk about. It's not selling that well. it's doing great for what it is, SMT, but like it's not Persona, for example. If when you were talking about the shareholders, I don't think they probably didn't put that much pressure on SMT 5, if that makes sense.
No, and exactly, and obviously, like, I think we're giving a little more credit in terms of them giving it a date. They gave it a year. Like, saying 2021 at the end of your trailer, yeah, that's really easy to then just put, like, hey, guess what? You know when else they did that? They did that every year for 3 years with Persona 5. Persona 5 every year had a trailer in a year, and the next trailer had the next year. It was literally like, you might as well have just been saying these trailers are for the next trailer.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Because, like, think about it like this. Literally, with Persona 5, from 2013 until 2016, this was their course of action with it. Announcement trailer, 2014. TGS trailer announces PS4 version, 2015. 2015, announcing dancing game with new trailer for 2016. 2016, here's the date. Please never ask us this again. Please promise us we're done. And it was like one of those things of just like every time it was like, yeah, you learned more info and you got a new year. So like honestly, I'm gonna just say this right now. Please hold me accountable for it, everybody. The next time you see Shin Megami Tensei 5, you will see a trailer with actual gameplay, and it will be delayed until 2022.
Oh.
I don't know when that trailer's coming. I know it's not this year, but like...
No, not this year, for sure.
I cannot feel it. Like, unless this company has just been doing some miraculous hours with everything going on, like, I just can't imagine them going from... Okay, guys, in a year, we're going to reveal the gameplay and release it to you all. Like they've just never had the track record to back it up, and I don't see that happening any faster or even any better, or even like I don't want them to rush it. Like if SMT5 got delayed 2 more years, I'd be like that's fine, because like remember next year we're still getting at least like we're guaranteed at least 2 games next year from Atlas without even anything more being announced. Like we're getting Nocturne and we're gonna get Scramble. It's like. Even if that was our year, that'd be fine.
True. Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to complain again. I just want a good game. It's just that, I can't. I want to believe that they're going to release it next year, and I want it too much, I think.
David, I want you to know, I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong so bad, but unfortunately I'm stupid and have covered this company for 8+ years, and have just... At no point when like games get announced, like I'm never the freak out about a date until we have like the 3 date. And when I mean the 3 date, I mean I want the month, the day, the year. I don't want a year, I don't want a season, I don't want a quarter. I want all 3 of those things, and then I'll get hyped.
Okay. Well, you're not getting hyped anytime soon, bro.
No, exactly. I mean, hey, exactly. I'll just stay hyped playing like, Demon Souls and pretending it's an Atlas game still.
Yeah, they published it before, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's about it for like at least trying to keep us under the 2-hour mark. So should we start trying to say goodbye?
I'm good. Any final question that you wanted to ask on my part? That rounds up pretty much all that I had.
That is just about it. I have one little quickie. I don't know if you have any Arc System knowledge you want to say, but Mark Louis says, do you think or believe Arc System Works could make an RPG SMT or Persona? So Arc System Works, the fighting game company. Do you think that they would ever do a RPG?
I don't see it happening. Maybe an action RPG? Maybe?
I love Arc, and this comes up so often just because I have so many Ultimax fans and stuff, but like I love Arc System Works. I love Atlas. Arc System Works they're too busy. They have way bigger fish to fry. Like, the money they make from Dragon Ball Z probably is, like, 3 times the amount of money Atlas could pay them for any project. Like, remember, Atlas and Sega are not a big baller, like, rolling in the money company. Like, they're not like, able to, like, throw around, like, Dragon Ball money or even Grand Blue money. Like, think about it. Something like Grand Blue Fantasy probably makes more money in a year than all of, like, Yakuza 7 and Persona sales.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean... I would like it, though. I'm sure they would be great, but just as just like you mentioned, they have so much other things that they would do first, and it just makes so much sense. Like Dragon Ball, come on. Versus
And
SMT.
even like I think if your arc system works, I don't think it's selfish or even too crazy to say that for them a passion project like working on the next Guilty Gear for them. That's a game they are publishing, they are developing, they are working they're really like trying with this Guilty Gear to make it the biggest one possible. Like they are not only delaying the game because of everything going on in the world, like they've even now said this is such a huge thing for them. Oh hey, we're finally going to do rollback netcode. That's something they have never ever committed to. Like those games are infamous. Like Arc System games, along with many other Japanese fighting games, are infamous for having disgustingly bad. Like, trust me, as someone who used to play Ultimax weekly online, those games have terrible netcode. We were not playing for the authenticity of a fighting game match. We were just playing so we could mash buttons and talk shit to each other.
Oh yeah.
So like,
before Arena was also a big game that they did. That was a great game that they did.
Yeah, but like also important to remember, a company like Arc back then, they were big for BlazBlue. And now you look at Arc, and it's like, oh my god, like Dragon Ball alone pretty much shot them up into like AAA game dev stuff. But like even with their smaller stuff, like you look at titles like the Kill la Kill game, like even stuff like that, it's like stuff like that probably even had a bigger budget than Arena or Ultimax did. Arena and Ultimax were basically half visual novel, half BlazBlue clones.
Oh yeah. That was a great question.
David, that was a great podcast. Thank you so much for crossing over with me this weekend.
Oh, it was a blast as always. Thanks for coming back on my my brand new podcast. Still an amateur, not a veteran like you are with 200 episodes under your belt.
one day, and many years later, we'll get. Now, all right, be honest with me, and you can be serious because like honestly. You would be amazed how many other podcasts talking about Atlas-related things have come and gone. Do you think that you will still be as interested in covering Megami Tensei, Atlas, or Persona in however many years until we get to the episode 200 for you guys? Because like that's one of the things that people don't ask me a lot, but I think about why SMTN is the longest running podcast, and a lot of it does come into people just losing interest, feigning interest, moving on to other topics. And like I can never make anyone feel bad for that. Like not like Lord knows I have no reason to, but it's just one of those interesting things that it's asking a lot, but and at the same time for me it's not really to be like Spencer. Every week you need to find something to talk about this series about without getting too bored of it. And I think like even with other people, because like I'm sorry for that. So your podcast isn't even like. Are you like hard set every week? There's a new episode, or like do you kind of have the as often as I can sort of thing?
Well. Already, you're asking me this at the right time. The plan was weekly, but I'm episode 7, and I'm perfectly fine at this point to confirm that it's not going to stay weekly for a long time. Definitely not. It's too hard because I want to keep a focus on Atlas stuff, and I can't. Well, I mean, I'm not you. I can't do it. I can't do it. Not weekly while keeping my focus. If I could do a weekly podcast, I'm pretty sure. But talking about Atlas stuff every week, ouch. That's a bit hard. That's a bit hard. I'm gonna have to talk about Japanese retailers or whatever leaking.
You would be amazed at how much I actually ignore for being a weekly podcast. That's like one of the funniest things of like, I could talk about so much like merchandise bullshit I don't care about. Like we don't talk about figures getting announced. We don't talk about like art books really coming out. Like I even talk about like the stuff I'm passionate about, like the manga. I don't even really talk about like that heavily unless like I have a manga focused episode. So like it is just funny. Like even look at other things like Gnarly's channel. Gnarly way bigger on YouTube and stuff. His current podcast, the Mega Dolan podcast, that's his second podcast he's ever tried doing just about this. But even that, like one of my favorite jokes I love talking to him about is like he can barely get like one show a month going. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's like it's not like he doesn't like it. It's just one of those things of like, man, it's hard to get like a room full of people to talk about this like every week in a long form discussion. Like look at LaRue, like his podcast, like it's kind of uneven, like depending on what we're talking about. Like it's hard to just get everybody in and talking about one thing, whether you're one person like me with different guests, or you're like a 4-person show like Gnarly or LaRue's show. And like that's kind of what makes a lot of podcasts sort of dissipate, what I find so interesting of just like, yeah, I don't know like what's in my head that like I'm still in love talking about this series. And now I always think what makes it so funny is like SMT isn't even like my favorite video game series of all time. It's not even like my top 3. That's what I find so funny.
Oh yeah.
So it's like
it takes discipline as well, because there's a lot of preparations. There's a lot of things that we have to do. So
I mean, and not only that, it's like it's the actual recording time, it's editing, it's uploading,
also,
or like even just other things of like it's hosting. It's me putting it on Spotify. It's putting on iTunes, Google.
Yeah.
It's me trying to pay attention to like now doing YouTube. Like I did SMT, and this is like I've been doing it for over 8 years now. I've only been actually trying with YouTube for like 12 months in December. Like, I started really, really trying in December of 2019. Hence why my channel has been around for like 12 years. But, like, I'm just now actually doing stuff with it just because, A, I have the time and I have the ability to really do it no matter really how poor it is.
Oh yeah, it takes discipline, and we have to concentrate. And there's a lot. The time, it's time consuming. Like, don't get me wrong, I love what I do, but it's really time consuming. Especially a weekly podcast.
Hilariously enough, at one point, and if anyone is listening and remembers these, they're still all up on the same RSS feed. There was actually a spin-off show of SMTN on top of the weekly podcast, where we would do a off-topic version of the podcast called After Hours.
Oh.
On top of the regular one, just because we, for the longest time, just always had so much shit just to talk about that even if it wasn't related, it'd be like, oh, you want to talk about Danganronpa for a week? All right, we'll do like an extra episode.
That's a cool idea, though.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's one of the things I really like, especially now that I've kind of been doing more stuff solo with the channel of like, I want to talk about Tetris. I'm not just talking about Tetris because I got a review code for it.
Why not?
I literally want to talk about Tetris. I want to talk about Yakuza. I want to talk about Kingdom Hearts. I want to talk about PS5 stuff. Like, somebody, like, just like other, like, random things. Like, somebody in my YouTube, like, comments recently was like, hey, check out Senran Kagura on PS5. Like, that's a great question. Like, that's a great, like, who's looking at Senran Kagura on their PS5?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this for fun, so why not?
Yeah, and exactly. And especially because, like, obviously, with how small my channel is, like, I've never, and I probably will never do this for money because, God, as soon as I start, like, trying to be financially dependent based off of this, like, it sets myself up for disaster. And I mean, obviously, I know certain people try and do things differently. Like, I know when I release a video, if I get any more than 5 views, I get excited. But, like, I have friends who, like, are a lot more dependent on their channels. And, like, when they're like, oh, God, this video only did, like, 20K and I needed to do, like, 150K. It's like, I get it. But because I at least have the luxury of I already have a day job, which does make me more busy, because it's not like every video matters financially for me, I just go into every one as long as I can have a discussion or someone who can enjoy it, then I'm happy.
Oh yeah, same.
You would be amazed.
Are we ready to wrap
David, you would be amazed how few of us do this and have a day job. Like, I think one of the chats, I'm in, like, this Discord group that is primarily content creators, and 2 of us have jobs. Like, really? Everyone else is just either in school or YouTube is their job. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't, like, imagine that.
Dude, I have a house, I have a car, I have a girlfriend, I have 2 cats. I can't do it with just YouTube. Well, obviously I'm a small channel. I just started, but
you just look at the girlfriend after this, be like, I think it's time for the OnlyFans.
Yeah, I think now's the time. I mean, I couldn't feed my cats every month with what I'm getting from YouTube, so it won't work. It won't work. Anyways, I'm doing this for fun, so.
Oh yeah, David, thank you again so much for coming on. And I know it is not Thanksgiving for you guys over there, but I think it would be fitting that we at least kind of are thankful-ish for this episode. So before we
Oh
end,
yeah.
whether it be video game related or life related, what is one thing from 2020 that you are thankful of?
I'm thankful for my job personally because I'm seeing all those people who are having trouble at the moment with the whole pandemic situation. We're in good health and I have a great stable job and I'm able to keep all those things that I mentioned a few minutes ago and I'm extremely grateful for that. How about you?
You picked such a actual serious one. I'm having to think about without seeming super duper artificial. So this is a really really dumb one. I am really thankful for a video game publisher. And specific video game publisher I'm referring to is East Asia Soft. They are a small publisher of digital and physical games in Asia, unsurprisingly. And they are the only company right now in the year 2020 who are still making physical PlayStation Vita games.
Vita games, yeah, I saw that. I saw you tweet about that.
And it's just one of those things that, like, every time a game gets announced, whether it be a visual novel or a, like, indie game or something, I take every one as, like, okay, this might be the last, so I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to love it. And thankfully, I enjoy such a wide array of games. I enjoy them all anyways, and I've never had one that I'm like, oh my god, like, I totally, like, burned all my money. I don't buy them because they're Vita games only. I don't buy them because they're, like, rare and limited. I buy them because I want to support these developers and try different and interesting new games. And it's just, like, one of those things of, like, I know that's a limited thing. I know Vita production is going to come to an end in early 2021, so it's like one of those things of it's really hard for me to complain they're putting out too many games too quickly when it's like, hey man, in 4 to 6 months there might not be any more Vita games physically, so like you never know when the last one's going to be. So just like in the moment, and especially for 2020, like I'm looking at my wall right now and like they've already done like something like I think they're almost over 20 this year alone. Which, like, for still a pretty small, like they're not even, like, limited run big, like, level size. Like, they're still, like, a pretty small company. Like, they're making, like, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 copies a game, which, like, is not that much. So, just something that I really appreciate is still going on, even though it is a very, very niche audience.
Yeah, but when you enjoy something as much as you do with the Vita, it's really cool. It is.
Now, David, where else can people find you when you're not feeding your cats?
I mean, Twitter, if you want to talk with me, Twitter at DavidCast6917 and on YouTube, DavidCastJRPGs.
And if you would like to find me when I'm not playing Just Dance 2021 on my PlayStation 5, which is a real thing, you can find me on Twitter. My personal Twitter is at Torchwood4SP. The podcast Twitter is at SMT Network. You can join the Discord in the link below. You can join the YouTube channel just by searching either my name or Shin Megami Tensei. You can join the Facebook group by going to facebook.com/groups/SMT Network. And if you want to rate and review the podcast on whatever podcast service of choice you use, please, please, please do. It always helps out a whole ton. Either way, guys, thank you so much for watching this horrendously long episode, which they all have to be. A podcast of me can't be short, God forbid. So, David, thank you again also for letting me not only have you on my podcast, but also, more importantly, having me on your podcast, which is really what this was. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. Crossover time. It was great. Thank you for being on as well. And thank you all so much for watching, guys. We really do appreciate it. And have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy it.
All right. Bye, everybody. And also, thank you so much if you were watching live. I was amazed at how even we were with consistent viewers on both channels. I was really wondering, like, who was going to, like, take the edge case over the other.
Oh yeah, we were in a kind of a race.
It was like all right. Well, you know, it don't matter. Let's be. It's like the spoiler cast. It doesn't matter who does it first. It's just whoever breaks the whoever breaks the post view counts is really what matters in the end.
Oh, don't do this to me. I told you before, you're a celebrity now.
Oh my god. I'm like that's like the best part, especially for like how long I've been doing this. Like I want you to know the amount of times people have ever actually been like, oh, are you the guy from SMTN? Like that like happens like I think I've happened like 5 times in my life. Which is like it's funny of like I've done this for so long. I've been so public facing for so long. but it's very rarely ever been like a thing where I think it's easier to be self-aware of the community than the guy who started it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's been so many years. That's the reason why, not because of how many people are watching.
Oh my god, I know, but like, and that's like one of the fun things as well. Is like I love looking at people who like I know I added like in 2012 on the Facebook group who still interact on the Facebook group. Like that's like one of like the really really crazy like rewarding feelings.
For sure, for sure.
Well, now I should actually like end the stream just so everyone doesn't have to hear us all talk for the end of all time.
I will do the same. Peace
Whew.
out, guys. Bye bye.